One, those who belong in heaven shouldn't look down at the underworld, but our young hero. Shin Hyan figured this was his absolute end. Honestly, anyone would have believed that. But what if he ends up in hell? Is that really the end? Suddenly, a system screen offered Shin Hyan a terrifying glimpse of how this world would eventually fall. Anyone trapped in hell would dream of heaven every single second. Shin Hyan wondered what he would finally see. But now he lay unconscious on a cold rock, unconscious, yet the system screen stayed active. Suddenly, he noticed that Yun's soul had fallen fast asleep. In the backseat, tired, so tired, in this quiet moment his memories drifted back. He remembered his real name, Shin Hyan, just another dream about his family. Suddenly the car slammed on the brakes, hard, blinding headlights of an oncoming truck illuminated everyone inside. Shin Hyan realized it had been ages. It had been so long since he last saw them, but when he finally woke up, he was already stuck in this bizarre place. That had happened several years ago, back inside that ancient cave where he discovered the book, Heavenly Harmony of Pure Art, his only clue to find his way back was a message to behold the end of this world. Would he actually return to his family if he completed the quest? Shin Hyan felt like he couldn't take it anymore. Then, a congratulatory notification flashed, announcing he had completed his intense training. Shin Hyan believed that now his long ordeal was finally over. He would soon see his parents again. In Yun's soul, but the moment the young man stepped outside, his hopes shattered. He was somewhere else entirely, unfamiliar, hostile. This was far from the end. Instead, he was stranded in Muram, and this was only the true beginning. Shin Hyan fell to his knees, crushed. He didn't understand why they had done this to him. Who was behind this cruel game? What else must he do to survive? Suddenly, a rough voice called out to him. A stranger sneered at his nice clothes. The bandit complained that Shin Hyan's loud crying had guided him right to him. The stranger claimed he had no choice. His family was starving to death. Brandishing a sharp blade, the man coldly declared that this weak young man would become their next meal. Shin Hyan stared back, terrified. Survival instinct kicked in. His body reacted before he could even think. A blood-stained weapon clattered to the ground. In a flash, it was over. Shin Hyan scrambled back, horrified. The bandit's bloody, lifeless body lay before him. He gasped, denying the blame. Why did things turn out like this? He had just taken a life, his first. But he had no other choice. Anyone would have done it. Wake up, please. Why couldn't he just wake up? Suddenly, the system reported that his level had officially gone up. Shin Hyan laughed. The path to survival finally clicked. He understood what he had to do now. The martial arts and these system levels were his ticket back home. He made up his mind right then. He would max out his levels no matter what, and fast forward, that time came. He is now the supreme leader of the demonic sect, the invincible Sword Emperor. Holding his weapon, he looks down at his defeated opponent and asks for his rank. The broken martial artist squeaks out that he is indeed a Sword Emperor. Shin Hyan smiles. That explains everything, meaning this guy is only the 8th. He casually counts how many leaders of the demonic sect he has slaughtered. 6. This guy makes 7. His journey back home is almost complete. He always found those sect leaders pretty bizarre. Meeting them every 10 years was somehow always fun, but the master's assistant simply stood there, frozen in absolute disbelief. His master was completely obliterated. That scoundrel will pay dearly for this crime. The young opponent gasped. Are they seriously saying this to him right now? Demonic cult member standing right here. Our hero suddenly grabs him. Grabbing the opponent by the face, he laughs. He loves the fiery spirit. The young man freezes up. Why on earth won't his limbs move? Shin Hyan laughs, calling it completely normal for kids his age. He adds, the boy needs to learn some real martial arts and then come back to him. Maybe then he can actually cheer him up. Shin Hyan turns away, leaving the boy, and tells him to become the next sect leader. Only then will they meet again. Resting under a nearby tree, Shin Hyan lays down his sword. Sighing, he mutters that this generation's leader was a total dud. How is he supposed to cure this endless boredom? He yawns slowly. Maybe he should just build a brand new, completely overpowered sect from scratch. Everything is just too boring. Suddenly, a heavy memory hits him. 140 years have passed since then. 140 years since it all began. For his family, he was ready to watch the world burn, yet now he can't even recall their faces. There is no heaven for him. Living this hell meant surviving day after day. Shin Hyan snaps his eyes open, forcing the painful thoughts away. He has to stop thinking about it. Suddenly, a glowing system window flashes. The external level has reached its absolute maximum. Unlocked conditions are met. The ultimate heavenly emergence is unlocked, returning him to Earth. Earth Shin Hyun freezes. Is this really happening now? He had completely given up long ago. How pitiful does he look right now, he wonders. This feels like a direct insult. He reached the absolute peak. Is he a god now? To become a god, one must cast aside all earthly desires, yet his raw emotions are boiling like never before. Has he ever felt this way in his life? His family is likely already dead. After so many decades, for so long, he survived only to return. That was his sole drive. However, now he wants only one thing: vengeance against the absolute monster that dragged him to this. Shin Hyun seethes with rage. Talk about a terrifying power-up waiting to happen. No matter where that creature hides, he will destroy it completely. Shin Hyun, the mythical invincible sword emperor, is finally coming back. Returns to Earth after 140 years in the Murim world, 2011. Right after his terrible accident, the saint warns that terror is coming. It is right around the corner. Humanity has to evolve immediately. They must withstand the horror. People cannot afford to waste this. Divine blessing, a man in heavy chains whispers that it has finally begun. He has waited so long for Shin Hyun's final return. An archer aims, firing a massive energy arrow. A girl watches from a hill as a warrior flees for his life from terrifying, aggressive monsters. They are completely ruthless, baring their razor-sharp teeth to tear him apart. Through anything they touched, she took aim once more, activating her archer skill. Power arrow, the glowing shafts flew straight toward the monsters, hitting their targets and giving the struggling warrior a chance to escape. This archer was Cha Yun-sol, the formidable squad leader. The young girl quickly approached the fallen warrior, urging him that they needed to get out of there before it was too late. He gasped in relief, praising her incredible skill, but then tragedy struck. A monster lunged from behind, sinking its teeth deep into his shoulder. Cha Yun-sol screamed in horror. This could not be happening. Mr. Pengu was never supposed to get hurt. She frantically looked around. Monstrous beasts were tearing into the rest of her squad, and she realized that things had gone horribly wrong. The horde was endless, and they were not backing down. Worse, her own mana was running dangerously low. If she pushed any harder, she would die here. Suddenly, she spotted one of her own warriors running away while the beasts swarmed them. She screamed at So Junyoung, demanding he stop running like a coward. Cursing under her breath, she realized she was completely on her own now. Drawing another arrow, Cha Yun-sol feared she might be too slow. Meanwhile, So Junyoung kept sprinting, driven entirely by raw, selfish panic. He only cared about surviving, regretting that he had ever joined this mission. Glancing back, he watched the monsters slaughtering the rest of his comrades. He cursed at himself for teaming up with such useless losers. If he stayed, he would die too. Suddenly, an arrow slammed into the dirt. Right in front of him, stopping dead, So Junyoung spun around. He saw Cha Yun-sol standing there, her face twisted in pure rage. She demanded to know where he was running. He faked a relieved smile, saying he was overjoyed that she had made it out alive. He claimed she had it all wrong, urging her to just calm down. But Cha Yun-sol grabbed him by the collar, reminding him of her warnings. This was a deadly battlefield, yet here he stood, a spineless coward. He had abandoned them the moment danger struck. Tears of frustration filled her eyes. Their entire squad lay dead because of pathetic cowards like him. So Junyoung scoffed, asking why he should sacrifice his life for them. She wiped her face, coldly agreeing that he was absolutely right. She should never have expected anything of value from absolute trash. He could run home to his father, but would his family accept a coward? Could his father really ignore this, knowing it would destroy Dawn's reputation? Enraged, So Junyoung quietly stepped up behind her, preparing a strike. He activated his rock breaker skill. Suddenly, Cha Yun-sol was struck right through the chest, crying out as blood pooled from the wound. Her legs buckled under her. She collapsed, leaning weakly against a tree. Standing over her, So Junyoung sneered, telling her that he would write the narrative now. He grabbed the dying leader by her hair, reminding her she had no family. No one would ever come looking for her. She had been so famous. But now she would only be remembered as the leader who failed everyone. The pathetic squad leader who dragged her entire team to their graves. Her entire squad was wiped out, and so Yang remarked that it looked incredibly convincing. Leader Cha Yun-sol did well, suddenly pure chaos. The sudden light startled Seo Yunjong, forcing him to let go of the leader. As smoke cleared, the silhouette of a strange man finally came into view. Standing where the flash hit, the man looked completely dazed. "Welcome back to Earth," the system cheered. Cha Shinhyan laughed. His prize for hitting the maximum level was just a trip back home. Was this all a sick joke to them? Cha Shinhyan swore to hunt down the culprits. He would destroy them. A voice behind him scoffed, calling him mad. He fell from the sky, babbling about cheap revenge. Seo Yunjong watched him warily, wondering if this guy was a mage. He demanded to know if this complete stranger even realized where they were standing. Cha Shinhyan completely ignored him, instantly setting off the notoriously explosive temper of Seo Yunjong. No one looked down on him like this without consequences. Cha Shinhyan looked at the dying girl and asked if a duel happened. Seo Yunjong instantly realized this unwanted intruder had shown up at the absolute worst possible time. A witness was the last thing they needed. It was a mistake. This new guy saw everything they did to Cha Yun-sol. They absolutely could not let him walk away alive, meaning he had to be eliminated immediately. Seo Yunjong called out, but Cha Shinhyan only stared at the glowing necklace. Seo Yunjong lied smoothly, claiming they were just having a friendly match. Slipping silently behind the highly distracted stranger, Seo Yunjong prepared to deliver a brutal, fatal backstab. He raised his sharp dagger, whispering that he must join her. But the strike never landed. Suddenly, his entire body locked up, completely paralyzed. Instant payback, Seo Yunjong collapsed to his knees in utter terror. A suffocating, heavy aura was radiating from the stranger like a crushing wave. The dry ground cracked under his feet as raw energy violently exploded outward. Seo Yunjong gasped in absolute denial, refusing to believe what was happening. The stranger looked down with incredibly cold eyes, asking if he truly did not recognize him. Cha Shinhyan coldly ordered him to state his name right now. But without waiting, he proudly declared his legendary title to his foe. The invincible Sword Emperor, Cha Shinhyan, then gathered his deadly energy. He aimed it directly at Seo Yunjong, whispering that names would not save him. The focused blast exploded from his hand like a fired bullet. It completely obliterated the head of Seo Yunjong, leaving his body kneeling. Stepping closer, Cha Shinhyan knelt beside the dying girl to comfort her. He whispered that her brother was home, reviving old memories. In her mind, she remembered being told it was time to leave. Her mother had warned her that the amusement park was closing down. Her loving older brother had gently teased her about wanting to stay at the park forever. He joked that their parents would get worried if they lagged behind. Little Cha Yun-sol had anxiously asked when they would meet again. Their mother gently explained that his busy studies would keep him away. But Cha Shinhyan had hugged her tightly, promising his deep love. He swore he would always return to protect her, no matter what. Her brother promised that next time, they would definitely walk in this park again. Yun-sol was delighted, quickly climbing onto his back with a happy smile. She joked about going home, leaving her brother to carry her to the car. Remembering the mangled wreck of their car, Yun-sol felt a crushing weight of guilt. If only she had not been so stubborn about going, her parents would be alive. But after that horrific accident, even her beloved older brother vanished without a trace. Suddenly, Yun-sol snapped her eyes open, gasping for air like she just escaped death. Shivering from the nightmare, she pushed herself up on trembling hands, chest heaving. Shinhyan gently explained that he healed her wounds using his own spiritual power. Since the damage was deep, she could not move just yet. Yun-sol looked up. She quietly asked the stranger who he was. Shinhyan smiled, assuming she recognized him. He expressed how wonderful it felt to see her again, noting how much she grew. He admitted he probably looked quite different now, leaving the girl completely lost. Staring deep into this stranger's eyes, Yun-sol felt a sudden shock. He reminded her so much of her lost brother. Moments ago, Shinhyan had handed his sister a beautiful necklace, saying it was a special gift for her. He told her to stay strong and never give up, even when he was gone. Tears spilled over as Yun-sol demanded to know why he vanished so suddenly. Returning out of nowhere like this made no sense. Shinhyan pulled her close. He whispered that he understood how incredibly painful these lonely years must have been. Still terrified, Yun-sol pushed him away with a sharp, panicked cry. She demanded to know what happened to So Yun-jang, her brother calmly replied that she did not need to worry about the monster who tried to kill her. He was harmless now. Yun Sol glanced sideways and spotted a headless corpse nearby. It lay rotting in the deep ravine. Yun Sol gasped, asking why he did that. Shin Hyan seemed genuinely confused. Grabbing his arm, she insisted they leave immediately. Looking around the dusty room, her brother noted how little the old house changed. She snapped back that they had far bigger problems to worry about right now. Director Seo Kang-jin would be arriving any minute, and he was absolutely ruthless. As head of the powerful Dawn Guild and the father of deceased So Yunjang, he is widely feared for his sheer brutality, standing among the top 11 hunters. Too much time had passed while Yun Sol lay unconscious on the floor. The terrifying guild leader definitely received word of his son's brutal murder by now. Since she survived the raid, Seo Kang-jin would instantly point the finger at her. Her brother shrugged, asking if wiping out the entire guild would solve the issue. Shin Hyan casually reminded his sister that he was the invincible Sword Emperor. She blinked in shock. Still, Seo Kang-jin was no ordinary opponent. He was a level 50-plus ranker with incredible authority. Yun Sol grew furious. Honestly, who even says things like that with a straight face? He had been gone for 14 long years, and now he shows up spouting nonsense. Was he losing his mind? She confessed she had no idea what to do next. She had survived completely alone without her parents or her brother around. Did Shin Hyan even understand how agonizingly painful her life had been? Yet he just drops in out of nowhere. Meanwhile, her brother quietly stared at the old family photograph still hanging dusty on the wall, asking a quiet question. Looking at his sister, he asks if their parents are really already dead. He asks if his words sounded strange or if he was being too blunt. Shin Hyan explains he was trapped in Murim, a story that would take ages to tell. Instead, he begs his sister to catch him up on everything he missed. He wants to know about these hunters and what these guilds are all about. He even asks if leveling up is actually a real thing in this world. Yun Sol begs him to stop because her mind just cannot handle all of this. It is simply too much information for her to process right now. She promises to explain everything later, but she has to run. An urgent matter requires her immediate attention. Shin Hyan asks where she is going. Yun Sol answers that she is heading straight to the Dawn Guild. He decides to stay behind and wait for her at the apartment. Looking around, he notices everything remains completely untouched. It feels like he was just standing in this room yesterday. He survived alone for so long, reaching the absolute peak of power. Now he has to step back into the role of a protective older brother. Shin Hyan recalls the name So Kang-jin, the man his sister mentioned. He needs answers about him, but suddenly, uninvited guests barge straight into the room. Shin Hyan is taken aback. What kind of people just walk into a home? Standing right there is none other than So Kang-jin, leader of the Dawn Guild. He says he has a very personal interest in Yun Sol. Talk about bad timing. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the massive Dawn Guild, the girl arrives. She hopes So Kang-jin has not done anything terrible to her brother yet. Still, she fears they might grab her the second she steps through the doors. Hearing her name, she spins around to see Lee Jai-hai, the deputy leader. Lee Jai-hai stares at her and demands to know why she is here. The deputy asks if something is wrong. Yun Sol immediately tenses up. She's standing right in front of one of the 4 strongest hunters alive. A level of power that normal people can barely even comprehend. Knowing she is completely cornered, she decides to take a desperate gamble. Back at the apartment, Shin Hyan asks if anyone ever taught them to knock. One of the thugs sneers and asks if they should go back outside. After all, they did not exactly come here for a friendly housewarming party. Another henchman demands to know who this arrogant brat even is. So Kang-jin snaps that they do not care, where is Yun Sol? Shin Hyan calmly asks if he wants the girl or the killer of his son. He casually drops the truth. He is the one who ended his son. Oh, he is absolutely furious now, so Kang-jin roars in pure rage. Shin Hyan calmly notes that since his Murim title might sound weird here, they can just call him Shin Hyan, and if they understand that, then he is ready to begin. He is eager to test their strength. So Kang-jin draws his blade and lunges straight at our hero. Unarmed but entirely unfazed, Shin Hyan prepares to parry the deadly slash. Meanwhile, back at the guild, Lee Jai-hai tells Yun Sol to follow her. Shin Hyan senses a mysterious energy in his opponent, a power very familiar to him. It was not the spirit of the blade or sword energy. This power source was completely different. Could this be the strange and bizarre hunter power that Yun Sol talked about? He recalled So Yun Jong using this exact same bizarre energy. He needed to study it closely. Suddenly, So Kangjin activated his consecutive attack skill. The young hero remained entirely unbothered. So Kangjin failed to land even a single scratch on his calm opponent. The Dawn Guild leader struck hard with massive force, yet the hero stood perfectly fine. Shin Hyan calmly muttered that was enough. He finally understood his opponent's capabilities. The guild leader grew absolutely furious that some random guy effortlessly blocked his attacks barehanded. Shin Hyan quietly estimated there were probably 10 more people like So Kangjin here. The guild master's underlings tried to jump in and help, but the young man swiped them away with a single hit, calling them annoying pests. No matter what So Kangjin tried, he simply could not cause his opponent any trouble. Desperate, the master unleashed a massive fireball mage skill. Shin Hyan was instantly swallowed by roaring flames, but walked out untouched. He walked right up to the stunned guild master and offered some praise. Noting that the man exceeded expectations, Shin Hyan grabbed the incoming sword. He shattered the steel blade like cheap porcelain with his bare hand. Dawn Guild members watched in sheer terror as their jaws hit the floor. And honestly, who can blame them for panicking here? Yet Shin Hyan stood there with absolute indifference to the chaos. He remembered his sister, saying he had been gone for 14 years. But to him, that time felt vastly longer than 14 years. Even so, he had to admit his opponent's level was pretty high. Their skills looked like ancient talents refined over thousands of years. Could mere humans have surpassed him in just 14 short years? With only a handful of such geniuses per generation, it felt absurd. Shin Hyan remembered when he also started small before rising above everyone else. He declared that their strength meant absolutely nothing, and this world's hierarchy could never restrict him. Instead, he came up with an incredibly interesting plan to try. He wondered if he should just reconstruct their entire power structure and climb all the way to the absolute peak himself. Yun Sol was driving, absolutely unable to believe what she was hearing. Why would the deputy leader of a massive guild want to meet her brother? Lai Jinhai sat right next to her in the passenger seat. Yun Sol thought her brother was ordinary. What could a guild executive want? It was impossible to tell if Lai Jinhai was a friend or an enemy. But Lai Jinhai offered to write off the incident with So Yun Jong. She promised to frame it as an accident and speak with her boss. Yun Sol knew this was a massive offer she could not refuse. She directly asked the passenger if she was her brother's enemy. But the deputy guild leader remained completely silent, recalling their earlier talk. Yun Sol repeated that her brother had vanished exactly 14 years ago. Lai Jinhai quietly realized that meant he was over 140 years old. It was hard to even imagine how insanely strong he must be. Yun Sol describes Shin Hyan as kind and gentle, but most of all, highly intelligent. She adds that he went to college and often helped her with homework. Meanwhile, an enemy tries to sneak up on Shin Hyan. From behind, still, he admits he has never felt this power in Murim. Can Kang Jin use that strange aura again? Shin Hyan raises his fist and down he goes, instantly shut down flat. Shin Hyan warns that he has no interest in him, so do not interfere. The guild master stands completely frozen. Shin Hyan tells him to stay calm and continue. Shin Hyan actually enjoys this cold aura, something you only find in the legendary ice palace of the North Sea. Suddenly, ice dragons are summoned. One of the guild members is instantly frozen solid inside a block. Vice, Shin Hyan notes the guy simply could not handle the cold. No need to dwell on him. Meanwhile, a shielded warrior tries to sneak away. He flees during the chaos, but quickly warns the leader about the ice barrier. They're completely boxed in. Kang Jin yells at the retreating warrior, demanding he hold his shield at the front line to block the enemy attacks. Instead, he flees, turned his back on them like a coward. Suddenly, Shin Hyan whispers from right behind the guild leader, it is his turn. Kang Jin cannot comprehend where this guy got such insane ice magic and impenetrable defense. Was that bizarre beam from his fingers actual magic too? And how did he stop those strikes? Looking around, the house is completely untouched. Not a single thing is broken, despite the sheer scale of their clash. This cannot be a coincidence. The head of the Dawn Guild demands answers. Did this monster prepare all of this just for their arrival? Shin Hyan calmly explains he simply blanketed the area with his sword force. He has not been home in ages, no way he lets them wreck it. Shin Hyan admits it is a bit too complicated to explain to him. But the moment these uninvited guests stepped inside, they entered his personal world. Kang Jin realizes this guy is a total monster, but refuses to die. He screams that he is not going to die in a dump like this. With a roar, the guild leader activates his ultimate berserker rage skill. Shin Hyan shrugs, admitting he might indeed be a monster to some. That aura surges. What is he planning next? Shin Hyan watches as the man completely loses his mind. Driven by pure madness, the intruder has become even more dangerously unstable. Picking up his broken blade, Shin Hyan is done holding back. In a flash, Kang Jin is slashed, bleeding heavily from the brutal strike. He collapses onto the cold floor. Shin Hyan sighs, telling him to learn his place. The fool stands zero chance against the power of the invincible Sword Emperor. Outside, Yun Sol invites the deputy guildmaster inside, welcoming him to her home. But she stops, immediately confused by the wide-open front door. Inside, she sees a pile of unconscious bodies. Right there, her brother is casually wiping up blood. Shocked, she demands to know what happened. Shin Hyan simply complains she is late. Wringing out a blood-soaked rag, he tells her not to stress over this. These guys just showed up early for their housewarming party. Yun Sol stares at him blankly, wondering what kind of insane party this is. She kept going on about how that fight almost became a bloody massacre. Yun Sol demanded her brother explain right then and there what actually went down. Shin Hyan just grinned. He loved that intense look on his sister's face. She would need that fire to survive in Murim. Meanwhile, Lee Jai-hai noted that things had gotten pretty chaotic around here just a bit earlier. Shin Hyan asked who she was. He stared closely at Lee Jai-hai and felt his heavenly harmony of pure art begin to vibrate. Lee Jai-hai realized that the man standing right before her was indeed Shin Hyan, but who was he really? What was that strange sound? She wondered if he truly believed he was the only survivor. To make it back soon, morning came. Yun Sol was still fast asleep in her warm bed. Suddenly, she bolted awake and leaped up. Something had seriously terrified her in her sleep. Yun Sol rushed out of her room, but nobody was around. Just then, a young man stepped out from the adjacent room, startling her. Was that really her brother? Shin Hyan calmly asked why she was awake so early. Did she actually think he would just vanish on her again? He seemed different now. Yun Sol felt a wave of relief. This definitely was not a dream, she asked. Why he was awake at this hour anyway? Suddenly his phone rang and he had to take the call. A full week quickly flew by after Shin Hyan finally returned home. Everything felt completely unreal. Then Lee Jai-hai met with Shin Hyan but never explained anything to his sister. The only promise she left him with was that they would meet again. Soon, some people from the guild arrived. They quietly disposed of the bodies of So Kang-jin and his men. The very next day, news reports announced the mysterious death of So Yun-jin and the sudden quiet resignation of Chief So Kang-jin. Lee Jai-hai kept her word to the girl. Yun Sol received a long, well-deserved break from her duties. As the only known survivor of the Red Wolf dungeon, eventually she called Shin Hyan out for a secret meeting. Yun Sol kept wondering what the deputy leader actually wanted with her brother. As she waved goodbye, she begged him to be absolutely careful and return safe. Shin Hyan then climbed into the scent car. Once he arrived, he looked at Lee Jai-hai and asked if she truly had nothing better to do. He pointed out she was tracking them day and night. Honestly, what was so interesting about them anyway? She was genuinely shocked. Had he actually noticed her tails this entire time? Though to be fair, she only did it to keep him safe. Over tea, she asked if he knew anything about the famous King Shan's Silver Needle tea she frequently visited this spot just for a sip. Then she asked him how he reached Murim. He replied that he had not enjoyed his time in that brutal world, so he would rather not talk about it. Still, he was completely willing to hear her own story. She explained that there are currently only 3 known returnees from Murim, him, herself, and Park Ta-hun, the powerful leader of the Twilight Guild. Twilight stands as an equal rival to Dawn, boasting a massive army of hunters. However, severe tension currently divides them, causing them to clash. But once they compared notes on their otherworldly travels, they discovered a chilling secret. Right after their sudden disappearance 14 years They had both awoken inside the exact same mysterious cave, on one wall. A legendary treasure known as the Heavenly Harmony of Pure Art, right across from it, was the cave exit leading straight into the martial world of Muram. That was their starting point. The girl asked if Shinhyan had gone through the exact same nightmare back then. Shinhyan paused, picturing the glowing system window that had popped up in his mind. The system had offered him a glimpse of this world ending if he wanted to go home. He quietly confirmed to his companion that his experience had been exactly like that. Li Jihai continued, explaining that they finally made it back home a few years later. But the moment they arrived, the age of hunters and dungeons had already erupted. She found zero records of Muram on Earth, but the connections were undeniable. Li Jihai then asked him if he knew when the dungeons first started appearing. Shinhyan answered without hesitation, 14 years ago, right after the goddess made her revelation. She nodded. That was when everything changed. Monsters, hunters, and dungeons appeared. People suddenly gained classes and skill systems, turning reality into a twisted RPG. Shinhyan asked her how she and Park Ti-hun managed to escape Muram. Did they actually survive to the very end? The girl shook her head. We died over there, she said, and then we just woke up back here. She wondered if his return was different, asking what he actually did over there. Shinhyan kept silent. He had stood at the end of that world and walked away. But did he really get sent back just because he reached the absolute limit? Why would the goddess dump him in Muram in the first place? What was her game? Maxing his level shouldn't just buy him a ticket home. Surviving the end of a world deserved a much bigger reward than this. He deserved actual answers after everything he had been through. He had built his strength through pure blood and sweat, yet received nothing. Cutting through his thoughts, he asked Li Jihai why she had brought him here. What did she actually want from him? She just smiled, suggesting a quiet walk. As they walked, she noted how the Dawn Guild and Twilight Guild were locked in a constant feud. Park Ti-hun's entire faction was their sworn enemy, and conflicts erupted daily. Now their rival director, Song Jin, was dead. Li Jihai pointed out that since Shinhyan was the one who put him down, he needed to take full responsibility. Her solution: join the Dawn Guild. She offered him a top-tier position, guaranteed fame, and endless resources. Honestly, most would jump at this chance, but Shinhyan admitted it was hard to ignore his sister's boss, but he was passing. Li Jihai was completely caught off guard by his sudden, flat refusal. He simply stated that he answers to no one but himself. Besides, he could never serve someone weaker than he was. She smirked, suggesting they test their strength right here to see who was weaker. But Shinhyan knew the scaling. 1 year on Earth equaled 10 years in Muram. Still, Li Jihai pointed out that time spent training doesn't automatically mean victory. Shinhyan agreed, but made it clear that no one from that era could match him. Even if they had trained for 300 years, he was on another level. Refusing to back down, Li Jihai smiled and activated her hidden barrier skill. The origin skill Shadow Play instantly dropped, and Shinhyan felt the shift. His senses suddenly dulled as pitch-black shadows swallowed the clearing around them. Its area of effect spanned 50 meters. A formation like this in Muram would normally require untold time and effort. Li Jihai explained that this was her very own origin. The young man could think of it as an artificial dimension mimicking the real world. To anyone on the outside, they had completely vanished. Li Jihai added that this was called the blooming of the blood plum in Muram, and with this skill she had never failed a single assassination. Shinhyan remarked that everything was finally clear. To him, an assassin, fighting her was like fighting against water with his hands tied. Li Jihai replied that breaking out of here was actually quite simple. A simple choice: either defeat her or die trying. He stood shocked. Was she seriously trying to kill him? Should he be afraid? But this skill, as it turned out, was not just meant for trapping him. Li Jihai, clutching her daggers, suddenly appeared right next to her opponent. Shinhyan used smooth close combat moves to toss the girl aside. The main character was surprised to find his opponent was fully capable of altering the direction of those daggers with just one hand. It was a highly unusual weapon. Shinhyan gasped. Standing before him was Muram's greatest assassin, the Dark King. Moonlight of the Bloody Path. Li Jihai asked if he had recognized her at first glance. Shinhyan replied that he once met a guy claiming to be her successor. Since that kid was still young back then, Shinhyan had instantly defeated him. Shinhyan then offered the girl 3 unique chances, saying she must Use her Muram skills. If she could even scratch him, he would join Dawn. Li Jai-hai leaped to her feet, no objections. They were in total agreement on this. This struck Shin Hyan as rather surprising. It felt as if all emotion had vanished from her world. It was as though absolutely nothing existed here, leaving him feeling like a lost kitten. In a boundless world, talk about terrifying. Could this truly be her power? Shin Hyan, using his own unique abilities, parried the sudden attack and sent the girl flying far backward. Shin Hyan admitted she was doing quite well. Li Jai-hai attacked again, and Shin Hyan effortlessly diffused the strike. Li Jai-hai knew that the strongest legend in Muram was Shaolin Shinsung, who had lived for 150 years. Shin Hyan had survived there for roughly the same amount of time. They were likely equally matched in combat power. The assassin realized that her opponent was the strongest entity in that entire world. Shin Hyan replied that this was not far from the actual truth. Li Jai-hai wondered why he was so indifferent to his fame, asking if defeating him right now would officially make her the strongest in Muram. Shin Hyan replied she certainly would, but could she really do it? Li Jai-hai activated her killer skill of shadow daggers. Shin Hyan looked up, witnessing a storm of energy daggers hurtling straight toward him at blinding speed. In response, Shin Hyan unleashed his mighty soul of the sword skill. Attack shattered. Li Jai-hai thought it was simply unbelievable. At some point, Li Jai-hai realized that her physical body was no longer obeying her, frozen by some unseen force. Li Jai-hai knew she had two failed attempts left. Could she actually achieve anything on her final strike? The third attempt also failed. Li Jai-hai accepted this was the end, but Shin Hyan urged her to continue, but Li Jai-hai admitted defeat, noting that a failure like this wouldn't happen again. Still, because of this, she wanted to ask him a single question. She asked what Shin Hyan had actually done, as for a brief moment, it felt like she was fighting an invincible being from beyond this world. Shin Hyan already saw it coming. In that strange space, any ordinary person would have been obliterated instantly, power or no power. Yet Li Jai-hai somehow walked out alive. Just how strong was this girl? Shin Hyan looked at her and admitted her mix of martial arts and skills actually worked. He was ready to accept her offer. The deal was officially on. The Dawn Guild would back him financially and feed him intel, and he would help them. It was a straightforward trade of resources for his raw muscle. But Shin Hyan made one crucial thing clear. He was still an outsider, not their puppet. Consider it a loose alliance. He gets his freedom, they get their backup. He would not take orders from anyone, but he would not turn down their help either. Li Jai-hai accepted, but she needed one promise in return. He was never to back any guild other than Dawn. As the invincible Sword Emperor, Shin Hyan proudly declared he would never break his word. They shook on it. Then he asked her to pull back all their watchers. He had only tolerated their constant surveillance because of his sister's safety. Li Jai-hai assured him that she had absolutely no desire to threaten his family. He thanked her, but then he did something unexpected. He offered an apology. She blinked, completely thrown off. Why was this monster apologizing to her now? He admitted he only baited her with those 3 moves to see her real skill. He simply wanted to witness the strength of one of the world's absolute best. Li Jai-hai appreciated the compliment, but she honestly did not mind the test. Honestly, can you blame her? It forced her to lock in and try to kill him. Shin Hyan smiled. She really had been aiming for his vitals from the start. He quietly asked what drove her to choose the dark path of an assassin. The question caught her off guard. In that dark cave, she had almost gone mad. Trapped in that absolute terror, she was consumed by a wild, desperate urge to destroy. That was her origin. Shin Hyan nodded, admitting he had been wondering about that. Meanwhile, the driver checked his watch, anxiously waiting for his boss to return. The moment Li Jai-hai climbed inside, he asked if everything had gone smoothly. Her exhausted state gave it away. She had even resorted to her shadow play. She sighed, admitting that even with her ultimate skill, she could not touch him. She could not even graze him with her blade. The guy was simply unreal. She had thrown everything she had at him, only to come up totally empty. Thinking back, she realized something terrifying. Shin Hyan had not even counterattacked. He just stood there. She had absolutely no clue how he even blocked her blades. It was an absolute crushing defeat. The driver muttered that they had to act fast. They could not let the Twilight Guild get him, maybe send him to the festival. To stop the Monster Park tune, securing Shin Hyan was their only hope. She was willing to pay any price to make this alliance stick. She remembered the warning she received. She had to submit to the Heavenly Warrior. They had to do absolutely everything in their power to keep Shin Hyun happy. Meanwhile, Shin Hyun finally made it back home and announced his return. Instantly, his little sister Yun Sol threw herself into his arms with a tight hug. He laughed, asking why she was squeezing him like she wanted to break his ribs. She snapped at him to shut up, demanding he never disappear on her again. Why take unnecessary risks when he could simply stay safe at home? And yet she worries that he might vanish again, just like last time. Shin Hun understood her fears, but he was completely determined to become a hunter. Yun Sol was stunned. Did her brother seriously have some kind of death wish? Shin Hun placed a glowing device on the table, explaining he received this mystical cube from Lee Jai-hai. Apparently, this device would let him see his hunter status screen. Yun Sol crossed her arms, ready to see if it actually worked. Shin Hun carefully held the cube, taking a deep breath to start. The strange object suddenly flared with a brilliant light before completely dissolving into thin air. Shin Hun instantly assumed that Lee Jai-hai had scammed him, but Yun Sol quickly corrected him. That was actually supposed to happen. Now he just had to say status window. Shin Hun spoke the command, and a glowing interface instantly materialized before him. It was a special interface from Murim, something totally unheard of in this world. This was real proof that his martial arts mastery had transferred over with him. Yun Sol stepped closer to take a look, hoping to check his stats. She wanted to see exactly which legendary combat class her brother had unlocked. She scanned the glowing screen and immediately told him to forget it. The life of a hunter was not for him, leaving Shin Hun completely stunned. Yun Sol explained that the system splits hunters into 6 primary classes. Those roles are warrior, tank, mage, priest, archer, and assassin. Beyond those, advanced classes exist, but these 6 remain the essential foundation. Yun Sol pointed out her own class is archer, with the advanced tier of sniper. These choices are innate and unchangeable, meaning his path was already decided. Shin Hun is completely classless, meaning he never stood a chance from the start. Sure, a person can technically act as a hunter without having any class. But it all comes down to skills, which is why she predicted his failure. Hunters must gain experience points to level up, which means fighting dangerous monsters. But fighting requires proper skills, which classless individuals do not automatically get. While ordinary classes unlock moves for free, he has absolutely nothing. His only option is buying expensive skill cubes, a basic hand-to-hand combat. Cube costs 20 million coins, and proper weapons training is even more astronomical. Others grow stronger for free, while classless people must spend a massive fortune. Yun Sol smirked, wondering where on earth her brother would find that cash. Shin Hun, however, was not worried. He remembered he had a powerful ally. Lee Jai-hai, the deputy guild master, must have an endless supply of money. Yun Sol noticed his confident smirk, realizing her little discouragement tactic failed. Shin Hun admitted he would be in deep trouble without Lee Jai-hai's financial backing. But money was not the real mystery. Why did he have no class? In Murim, he was an unmatched martial prodigy, yet here, he lacked basic talent. Soon after, they head to Kyeoksan Mountain, the Dawn Guild's official training dungeon. A cute rabbit hops across the grass, but do not let it fool you. This place is a monster zone, and these fluffy creatures are actually hostile targets. Yun Sol easily shoots one down, prompting Shin Hun to comment on their easy prey. She quickly warns him that having a lazy attitude gets rookie hunters killed. Shin Hun casually replies that will never be him, picking up the fallen monster. He picks up the crystal that dropped from the rabbit, wondering if this is what they call a monster stone. He mentions hearing it can be traded for cash, and Yun Sol starts to explain. It is an eco-friendly natural resource that yields a massive amount of energy. When processed, these crystals actually replaced nuclear power plants everywhere. Traditional power plants vanished, making crystal mining the new gold rush. But Yun Sol warns him to be careful, no matter how strong he might be. Dungeons are totally unpredictable, but right now, Shin Hyun is not even listening. He is already way too busy slaying monsters to build up his wealth. Yun Sol sighs, realizing her brother is completely tuning her out. Honestly, she is wasting her breath. Normal attacks do not grant him experience. Shin Hyun realizes he should have asked Lee Jai about his skills beforehand. Yun Sol tells him not to sweat it. After all, they have a whole dungeon to practice. With this place all to themselves, he will master the skill in no time. Still, she wonders what kind of deal her brother made with the deputy guild master. Everyone knows Li Jai is a strange one. She will definitely try to exploit him. Shin Hyun just grabs his sister by the hand and says he found a better spot. He wants to show her something cool. Yun Sol spots a massive group of rabbits. She asks how many there are, and Shin Hyun proudly says he counted exactly 337. Hearing this, Yun Sol immediately pulls out her bow in a panic. There are just too many of them, and her brother is still a complete beginner. Shin Hyun tells her there is absolutely nothing to worry about. Talk about a massive blow to his pride. He has never felt this humiliated. Centuries mastering the blade, only to get a rank D in fencing. To make things worse, he does not even have a class, not a single one. He is absolutely furious, convinced the system is playing a cruel joke on him. He stomps his foot in anger, causing the ground beneath them to crack. He draws his sword, targeting all his raw rage at the monster rabbits. His sister screams that he is a complete fool. She is terrified and nearly faints. He is done. He is tired of hearing her constant nagging. Suddenly, system alerts flood the screen. Things are about to get wild. Is this actually helping? Instead of reading, he just slashes the screen. He mutters that it is just getting in his way and continues his charge. He attacks. Nobody is worthy of teaching him fencing anyway. He remembers his days in Muram. Back then, nobody could match him. Those skills awakened 14 years ago. Now, these monsters are utterly destroyed. He laughs. The system needs another 100 years to teach him. But the system windows pop up again, refusing to be ignored. He complains they are annoying, but then he notices the latest update. His fencing level hits rank A. He asks how to close the screen. He wants to know how to change the settings to clear the screen. Yun Sol is completely stunned, asking her brother what he just did. He admits he has no clue. He does not understand these things. His martial power should be recorded here, but maybe this is just a glitch. Yun Sol is absolutely speechless. How could he level up this fast? He hit rank A instantly. Suddenly, he remembers her mentioning experience points. Experience could still accumulate passively, without him ever lifting a finger. He claims he only wants a comfortable life in the future. He can finally use his actual martial arts to gain experience, and Shin Hyun realizes this. Elite hunters like Lee Jae-hai and Park Tae-hun also have origin skills. But now, Yun Sol looks at her brother with a serious question. She had her doubts ever since the moment he completely wrecked So Kang-jin in combat. Seeing his raw, terrifying strength firsthand today has completely blown her mind. The nightmare of that Red Wolf dungeon might seem far away now. Yet there is absolutely no guarantee a disaster won't strike them again in the future. She blames her own weakness for their deaths, and she refuses to carry that guilt. She knows deep down she will never be a ridiculous powerhouse like her talented brother. But can he at least teach her how to fight? Shin Hyun smiles, telling her to relax because of course he is going to teach her. He warns her that while he is a first-time teacher, he will not be easy. In his mind, he knows she needs this to survive. She has to learn how to stand on her own 2 feet. Shin Hyun nods in agreement, suggesting they finally head over to the next grinding spot. Yun Sol is stunned. Had he already mapped out the entire area? Moving to a new location, she wonders what his next move is. Since he has already completely mastered swordsmanship, will he stick with the warrior path? Shin Hyun explains that his growth is tied directly to using his powers. Even so, his future direction as a hunter remains a massive question mark. Martial arts are great, but he still needs standard class-specific skills to adapt properly to dungeons. He recalls that Lee Jae-hai, the famous former assassin, successfully combined her unique combat skills. It made her ridiculously strong, and he wants that same edge. He needs skills that perfectly synergize with his current martial arts. Without waiting for his sister, Shin Hyun charges straight into a massive swarm of rabbit monsters. Rabbit monsters are everywhere, and he is ready to test a theory. He wants to merge any new abilities with his current moves. Yet some skill options seem almost completely impossible to combine with his own martial arts. Like the classic mage spell, Fireball, Yun Sol watches her brother in mounting worry. She begs him to slow down, but you know our guy is not stopping. Mixing magic with martial arts, he decides to become a mage right then and there. Before long, he studies both systems and quickly realizes there is a massive difference between them. There is a major gap between the Muram system and the Hunter system. The Muram status window only tracks his physical strength and basic levels. Meanwhile, Yun Sol holds a heavy bag of crystals harvested from all those defeated rabbits. She happily cheers that they will never have to worry about money again. Shin Hyan knows all of this knowledge will serve him well in Murim. The hunter status window is way more detailed, showing everything from physical stats to spirit. It is incredibly flexible, offering countless functions that the Murim system lacks. It is as if two different creators built them using very similar tools. This system hands out instant rewards, experience and resources for every single kill. A fast, highly reliable shortcut to power, but in Murim. The path to true mastery is incredibly slow, painful, dangerous. To master those arts, one had to train endlessly and constantly risk their life. It was the only way to truly sharpen their skills. The legendary Heavenly Warrior eventually became a living god. He was the master who wrote the scriptures of pure art. When he fought over this ancient treasure, inside a quiet cave, our hero finally woke up. Completely clueless about his surroundings, back then he simply assumed this was his new normal. But he overlooked one crucial detail: if a goddess gave humanity the hunter system, does that mean the one who sent him to Merim was the legendary Heavenly Warrior? Either way, with the backing of Li Jai, a full month had already passed since the young man began clearing dungeons and rapidly leveling up. Yet he still felt this lingering sensation that he was not actually back on Earth. A strange chicken monster appeared. Defeating it pushed Shin Hyan to level 22. Staring at the beast, he realized he actually wanted some freshly cooked chicken. Back home, Shin Hyan started teaching his sister about the anatomy of human blood vessels. While he easily mastered the common tongue, he worried about his younger sister. He believed she was simply too old to begin learning traditional martial arts from scratch. However, there was still one secret way. A few days later, Yun Sol asked what was wrong. Shin Hyan warned her strictly, even if she started bleeding, she must not cry. Yun Sol blinked in utter shock. Why on earth was her brother telling her this? He suddenly pierced her meridians, channeling his raw power directly into her body. Thanks to this intense process, Yun Sol began making unbelievable progress with her training. After her next archery session, she realized she was finally seeing real improvement. Meeting up with Shin Hyan later, Li Jai warmly hoped that he was doing well. She quickly confessed that she wanted to skip the pleasantries and get straight to business. Shin Hyan smiled. She really never beat around the bush when she wanted something. She proudly agreed, admitting that being direct was definitely one of her core traits. He pointed out that the deputy guild leader had been quiet for quite a while. Was she planning something? Indeed she was. Li Jai suddenly asked him out on a date. Shin Hyan replied that such sudden invitations were totally new to him, so he would pass. Li Jai quickly warned him not to reject her so fast, as there was more to the story. She explained that a new high-level dungeon had recently appeared over in Pushan. With a danger level of 10, it was recommended for hunters near level 50. Only elite hunters were allowed inside. It was no place for someone at level 20. But she quickly added that if Shin Hyan went with her, things would be completely different. Shin Hyan asked why she was suddenly inviting him into such a dangerous place. She explained that these high-level gates possessed a unique hunter quality control system. Besides, she genuinely wanted Shin Hyan to grow stronger at a much faster pace. Shin Hyan raised an eyebrow, asking if she was trying to force his development. Li Jai giggled, wondering who even talks like that anymore, although it made sense. For someone who had lived for over 100 years, Shin Hyan quietly replied that regardless of their partnership, he trusted her judgment, but what was her true motive? Why make him stronger? Li Jai countered by asking if he knew about the Festival of the Sun. It was an annual grand event held from dawn to dusk to showcase the power of the nation's absolute strongest hunter guilds, although to the public, it seemed like a friendly gathering to build positive relationships. It was actually a fierce competition that decided the true balance of power. It can be compared to small-scale wars. Right now, dawn and dusk clash. They fight for control of the dungeons. The real battles rage inside. This looks exactly like the start of a major war. Shin Hyan wondered what these factions fight for. If it is greed, it is foolish. But Li Jihai explained that it all comes down to Park Tahan. Things used to be stable, then he suddenly started chasing power like a madman. She added that eventually Park Tahan began obeying the Heavenly Warrior, Shin Hyan. Asked what the connection was between this Heavenly Warrior and Park Tahan, Li Jihai replied that she actually knows nothing about the Heavenly Warrior either. She had only heard that Park Tahan received a message in his MIM status window. She added that she could not confirm this because status windows are totally private. Still, even if he did receive some direct order from this mysterious heavenly warrior, she still cannot understand why he is acting so crazy. Since they used to be close friends, being the only survivors of MIM. Once again, Li Jihai asked the young man to participate as an ally. In the Festival of the Sun on Dawn's side, approaching the parked car. Their conversation continued. The girl explained that the balance of power shifted toward twilight. Here is the wild part, it is because they are capturing all the dungeons and running frequent raids. Li Jihai added that if this fact gets revealed at the Festival of the Sun, Dawn is finished. At this exact critical moment, she noted, they also lost their guild leader. Yes, Kang Jin, who was their absolute core strength, is now gone. Honestly, you cannot blame him. This made Shin Hyan feel a heavy pang of guilt. Overall situation now, but still wondered why his own growth as a hunter mattered. Would benefit them. Li Jihai explained that the Festival of the Sun is broadcast to the entire world, drawing in massive crowds of foreign press. She asked if Shin Hyan intended to show off his secret Murim martial arts to everyone. Proving he came from Murim would be impossible, and other hunters would grow jealous. She then asked if Shin Hyan was truly prepared to face the world. Hunters Association alone. The young man admitted he would definitely rather not. That is exactly why, she remarked, Shin Hyan must stick strictly to hunter skills. During the upcoming festival, she was highly pleased that he quickly agreed. Li Jihai then opened her suitcase, revealing 6 glowing skill cubes. These included top-tier skills, one for a mage and another for a sorcerer. Deep down, Shin Hyan still really wanted to meet Park Tahan, the girl. Then slid a thick stack of official documents right in front of him. Unlike in Murim, this world runs on strict legal procedures and contracts. These papers officially solidifying their new alliance with Dawn would guarantee their mutual support. There was even a formal registration document for his own guild, which took Shin Hyan completely by surprise. Why would he need a guild? Li Jihai explained that for independent mercenary hunters, signing up for the Grand Festival of the Sun is incredibly complicated. Serious issues might arise when validating their alliance documents. She casually asked the young man if he knew how much these cubes cost. Signing this contract is worth it for these cubes alone. Shin Hyan was stunned. Why did they not tell him sooner? Cha Shinhyun grumbled, signing the documents. There were too many papers. Now he needed a name for the guild. Li Jihai smiled, calling it a mere formality. He could write down anything. In the end, he simply settled on the Martial Arts Guild. It felt like a daily commute, constantly shuttling back and forth from school. Instead of school, he was currently clearing out the Pachin dungeon. Li Jihai quickly warned him to be careful. The beasts were not strong, but their sheer numbers here were absolutely terrifying. They were completely surrounded. Cha Shinhyun focused his senses, detecting over 3,000 monsters waiting ahead. Wait for it. For him, the more targets there are, the better. Later, Li Jihai asked how he had mastered those skills so quickly. Shinhyun explained that handling magical power is identical to controlling physical energy. Li Jihai sighed, admitting she could never pull off something so complex. She warned him not to overdo it, or he would collapse. He just laughed, no need to worry about a martial arts mage. Li Jihai called it completely unfair. Shinhyun simply stared back in surprise. Aren't dungeon monsters always identical? Meanwhile, a wealthy man sat peacefully by a riverbank. He scooped fish food from a bucket. This was leader Park Tae-hoon. Suddenly, his assistant, Chulho, stepped forward to deliver an urgent report. Chulho reported that they had detected highly suspicious movements from Li Jihai. She was pouring massive support into a mysterious, unregistered rookie. Word was they were clearing out dungeons together lately. Park Tae-hoon calmly tossed food into the water, digesting this information. As the fish fed, Chulho brought up another highly intriguing detail. This new hunter was actually the older brother of Dawn's leader, Cha Yunseol. His name is Cha Shinhyun. However, one glaring detail did not add up. He had completely vanished for 14 years, only to suddenly return. Park Tae-hoon frowned. Where had this guy been all this time? The assistant admitted that their intelligence team had absolutely no answers. But they did discover something else. Seo Kangjin did not retire. Instead, he vanished completely right after attempting to track down Cha Yunseol. He wanted revenge for his son. Park Tae-hoon connected the dots instantly. Park Ti-hoon suspected that this newcomer had actually returned from the Murim. Back in the dungeon, Cha Shin-hyun easily gathered another massive swarm of monsters. To him, testing out these brand new skills was the ultimate form of entertainment. Lee Ji-hai called out, reminding him that an entire hour had already passed. Yet the young warrior showed absolutely no signs of fatigue. He kept pushing, suddenly remembering a very unique skill cube in his inventory. The life exchange skill, a critical emergency move swapping health for mana. He realized that in the Murim, mastering both internal and external arts, forms an ethereal body, letting physical energy flow toward infinity. Once a martial artist reaches that pinnacle, existence becomes eternal. This eternal state is entirely sustained by the body's infinite energy. With infinite life, he can draw upon the skill without any limits. In other words, he now possessed an infinite source of mana. It is an endless source of energy, even with two different martial arts. Once the ultimate peak of one is reached, mastering the other becomes simple. At that supreme stage, absolutely nothing is out of reach. Lee Ji stood. Stunned, was such a feat actually possible? Shin Hyan told her that before the final boss fight, he planned to clear out all the weak monsters lurking nearby. Hearing this, Lee Ji realized raw power was not his only massive achievement. His resolve was unbreakable too. She felt so incredibly foolish looking back now. She had not only tried to manipulate him, she had actively wanted him gone. But with a powerhouse like this, the upcoming Festival of the Sun was no threat. Lee Ji realized that under different circumstances, she might have reached that very peak. Fearless of heights, she leaped up to strike the flying wyvern. High above the mountains, the deputy guildmaster made a firm choice. She had to return immediately and raise the threat level of this dungeon. The difficulty is far higher than expected, especially with those flying beasts. Dealing with them is a nightmare. What kind of team composition would actually work? Ideally, she would need 5 high-tier hunters, a balanced, standard raid squad. Suddenly, Lee Ji looked up and spotted a massive beast looming directly above. Where was it going? It made no sense to see such wildly different tier monsters spawning in the same zone. Suddenly, they were face to face. A towering creature loomed over her, slowly pulling back its massive jaws. It let out a deafening roar, releasing a vile, suffocating stench from within. Deep inside, she felt a horrific demonic pressure that was far from normal. This was no ordinary spawn. The entire system of this dungeon was broken. Shin Hyan smiled in excitement, declaring that the boss had finally shown up. He grabbed Lee Ji and quickly moved her out of harm's way. She asked if he knew this would spawn, but he simply reminded her. This was the dungeon boss, appearing only after they cleared the area. He explained that he had deliberately delayed, letting the big threat spawn last. Gently placing her on the ground, he told her there was no danger. He noticed she was a bit shaken, but reassured her everything was fine. In fact, he casually mentioned it was dinner time and asked what she liked. Did she prefer grilled food? Lee Ji sighed, snapping that this was no time to discuss food, but Shin Hyan simply activated his skills, telling her to trust him. They were definitely having some fresh grilled chicken tonight, he joked. Turning back, he braced for combat as Lee Ji watched the Titan approach. She kept calling out to him, completely baffled by what he was doing. He claimed he would use magic, yet his moves looked like basic strikes. But looking closely, she realized each blow was packed with condensed energy. It was an unbelievable sight. Suddenly, a massive portal tore open overhead. She screamed at Shin Hyan to retreat from that spot immediately. Yet he stood completely unbothered, keeping his trademark cool demeanor. She prepared to charge in to help as countless creatures began pouring out. The swarm was overwhelming. Again, she desperately screamed for him to fall back. Realizing he couldn't hear over the chaos, she knew she had to break through. Legions of smaller minions shielded the boss, blocking her path entirely. They were moving on autopilot. Clearly, the giant beasts were commanding the smaller minions. They even used their massive bodies as shields to protect them. Hai knew the truth. To win this fight, she had to target the leaders. But getting close to those massive bosses, that was going to be a nightmare. Looking up, she worried about Shin Hyan, who seemed to have stayed behind intentionally. The girl simply could not understand him. What on earth was this guy thinking? He could have easily messaged her using their telepathic link, but stayed silent. This bizarre anomaly was completely new to her, despite how powerful he was. Danger was incredibly extreme. Leaping up, Ji-hai mounted a flying beast and soared upward, Luckily, the mindless creatures were entirely focused on their commander. Jaihai silently begged Shinhyan to hang on just a little bit longer. Once she got close enough, she jumped, plunging her dagger deep into the boss. Now she was dangling midair. She gripped her dagger, desperately fighting to hold on. The beast spotted her. There was no turning back now. She had to act. Sliding down, she fearlessly dove straight into the giant monster's wide, open mouth. Ready for a deadly clash, she gripped her twin blades with tight focus. She confidently muttered that no monster here could ever match her shadow skills. A sudden barrier cracked open. The girl definitely did not expect this. Peering through the glowing rift, she gasped. Talk about a literal nightmare scenario waiting there. Yet standing right in the center, Shinhyan was radiating sheer, overwhelming energy. Not a single monster approached him. Honestly, Jaihai was completely speechless. Even crazier, he had summoned dozens of spectral swords without any visible source. How could anyone control that many weapons? His internal mana pool must be completely bottomless. She realized right then that keeping up her fake weak hunter act was totally pointless. They survived this anomaly, but what if these portals began appearing in other dungeons? Jaihai wondered if humanity could even cope with these threats under current safety protocols. Time to act. Their entire rating system was severely outdated. Realizing she had wasted too much time on festival prep, she needed to investigate. A full-scale inquiry had to start immediately. Meanwhile, Shinhyan examined the crystal. There was no way a corrupt figure like Park Toon would let this slide. He would eventually sniff out their investigation, and when he did, chaos would follow. The powerful Twilight Guild would immediately move to crush them, total annihilation. Noticing her deep frown, Shinhyan casually asked what was worrying her so much. He held up the crystal, asking why this particular stone felt so incredibly unique. Jaihai explained that it was a legendary skill stone, a highly coveted prize. Shinhyan was incredibly lucky, as a drop of this massive size was exceptionally rare. These monsters rarely ever spawned. Looking serious now, she faced him. She told Shinhyan they needed to talk. This was private, urgent business. Fast forward one whole month, and everyone was gossiping about the upcoming festival. Festival of the Sun, eagerly speculating on who would take the top spots. Naturally, Shinhyan's name came up. The internet was absolutely buzzing with wild rumors. Rumors claimed he had only awakened as a hunter a month ago. Another hunter mentioned, hearing that the powerful Dawn Guild was backing him directly. This shocking choice left the guild executives absolutely furious. Heads were rolling. Nobody knew his level or skills. He was a complete wild card. Where he had been for the past 14 years, the assistant bowed his head and apologized. This emergency meeting of top leaders was happening at the Twilight Guild. Headquarters, Park Taehoon, leader of the Twilight Guild, told Director Park. Not to worry, relax. He asked the director to sit down, adding that the Dawn Guild had acted way too hastily, revealing their hand much earlier than expected. Still, they would have to show their cards too, because who knows if it is a bluff or the jackpot. Park Taehoon added they must destroy the seeds of their power before they take root. A guild member glanced at his watch. Time was up. Why on earth was no one there? After a while, the young man spotted the guest he was waiting for and waved him over. The Twilight Guild member thanked Shinhyeon for accepting their sudden invitation. Shinhyeon remembered Yoonseol's advice. Watch the tone. He adjusted his stance slightly. During the conversation, he extended his hand and greeted Chulho. Chulho said it was an honor to meet him. Chulho had one goal today: information gathering. Was reconnaissance, trying to dig up as much info as possible. Shinhyeon looked at the young man, wondering if everyone in the Twilight Guild was this scatterbrained. Was there even a need to worry about them? Meanwhile, Chulho pulled a magical soundproofing device out of his bag. Once activated, it creates a barrier that blocks out all outside noise. Chulho assured him that their voices wouldn't leak out. Absolutely perfect for a private conversation. Talk. Chulho then asked if Shinhyeon had any idea what this meeting was actually about. He explained that the Twilight Guild wanted to form an alliance. Shinhyeon was totally speechless. What were they thinking? Guild was thinking, had they not even looked at the entrance for the Festival of the Sun, he already had a partner in the Dawn Guild. Chulho admitted he knew that. It was no secret that Dawn was putting all their resources into supporting Shinhyeon's growth. They were also fully aware of the incident surrounding the mysterious disappearance of director Seo Kangjin. They had even found out about his joint dungeon raids with Lee Jaihai, the Dawn Guild's vice leader. Yet Chulho pointed out that Shin Hyun still had not officially joined the Dawn Guild. He added that they saw a massive gap in Shin Hyun's connection with them, asking him once more to join their side instead. They promised him terms far better than anything Dawn could ever offer. Shin Hyun thought these guys were bolder than he expected. It would be hard to ignore this, Chulho quickly suggested, discussing their support details. But Shin Hyun cut him off. No need, he stood up immediately. He headed straight for the exit, stating he only came to satisfy his curiosity. But this was a total waste of time. Chulho stood there, completely stunned. Shin Hyun had not even heard their actual proposal yet. The young man desperately called out that they were prepared to double their competitor's offer. Shin Hyun replied that he had already promised Lee Jaihai he would not accept. He added that he was not the type of guy who cared much about money anyway. Chulho begged him not to leave, completely at a loss for what to do. Suddenly, a man in a cap spoke up. "How long will you stand there?" Chulho froze. He spun around, realizing it was his own guild master. Park Tahan called out and approached the young man with a quick reminder. He reminded him that he needed to keep this conversation going as long as possible. An earpiece peeked out of Park Tahan's ear, allowing him to listen in secretly. The guild master added that without it, there would be no point in spying. Sucho admitted his mistake, saying he deeply regretted his ignorance, but Park Tahan was still puzzled. What did this guy really want? Meanwhile, after listening to Shin Hyun, Lee Jaihai guessed that Park Tahan was incredibly upset, but Shin Hyun noted that the Twilight Guild leader probably already knew about his connection to Rome. However, the heavenly harmony of pure art meant absolutely nothing to him. Shin Hyun added that when he stepped into the cafe, he sensed some energy. Lee Jaihai's hunch was completely confirmed. Park Tahan was extremely cautious. Shin Hyun believed that because of this, the guild master wouldn't dare touch Lee Jaihai yet. Then he asked about the ongoing dungeon investigation. She replied that they hadn't found any new information regarding those strange anomalies, at least not since their last conversation. Lee Jaihai admitted that if Shin Hyun hadn't stepped in to help, she would have been completely lost, but Shin Hyun replied that the task wasn't hard at all, and besides, it was a great way to level up. Still, Lee Jaihai had no other requests, leaving Shin Hyun to wonder why her tone sounded so heavy. What was really going on? Suddenly, his sister, Yun Xiao, stood right beside him. She asked if he was finally done talking. Shin Hyun assured his sister that everything was settled, meaning they could finally go about their own plans. Soon they arrived at the quiet cemetery where their parents were buried. Yun Xiao told their parents her brother had returned, while Shin Hyun stood there silently, lost in thoughts of eternity as he stared at the old family photos. He realized he had changed so much since those days, yet even facing his parents' ashes, he felt completely empty. He knew he couldn't let his sister see this cold side of him. Yun Xiao looked up, asking if her brother was all right. She noticed that Shin Hyun didn't look the least bit sad or upset. She quietly asked why he was so silent. Did he really feel nothing at all? Shin Hyun tried to explain that he was still her brother, but he couldn't show his grief. Yun Xiao whispered that he looked incredibly strange right now, completely different. His cold apology was not what she wanted to hear. Her mind raced with memories of how Shin Hyun used to carry her on his back when she was small, and she burst into tears. She cried out, asking why he had changed so much. He looked far too calm and normal. She just wanted her real brother back. Shin Hyun replied that those days were long gone, and he simply couldn't return to the person he used to be. He quietly thought that coming here was a mistake. Why had he changed like this? He wanted answers just as much as she did. Suddenly, his system's status window flared to life. The chained man within it asked if Shin Hyun still considered himself a human. Talk about a chilling question. Shin Hyun froze, completely stunned by this. He realized this mysterious figure was only speaking one-sidedly. Who on earth was he? Shin Hyun demanded to know if he was the legendary heavenly warrior. The chained man warned that he would strip everything away from him once more. He just had to wait. Shin Hyun called him a total lunatic, realizing he had no idea who this entity was or why he was targeting him, but if he wanted a fight, he was welcome to try. Otherwise, he would personally find him and tear him to pieces, Shin Hyun declared. He swore he would never give up what belonged to him to anyone in the world. Meanwhile, Yun Sol turned around shocked. Had her brother really not followed behind her? Days pass quickly. Now, the show host announces that the big day has finally arrived. Today, everyone watches heroes explore dangerous dungeons and hunt down monsters. She knows the crowd has waited forever, so there is zero need to worry. The wait is over. The country's absolute biggest event is about to kick off. The massive festival is ready to start inside the country's largest sports complex. But get this, it is not just entertainment, it is also a way to tighten alliances between guilds. These high-stakes hunter battles are exclusive to this festival. At the Festival of the Sun, Shin Hyeon compares the events to the Olympics. But Lee Jae-hai quickly points out a massive difference between the two. Here it is the powerful hunters who draw the most public interest. Their godlike strength looks straight out of a movie, making it far more exciting. It does wonders for their image, but Lee Jae-hai notices Shin Hyeon's troubled face. She realizes our hero is going through an incredibly hard time right now. She asks directly if he has had a falling out with his sister. Ever since they arrived, a bizarre, cold atmosphere has hung between them. She asks what happened, wondering if Shin Hyeon messed up once again. Shin Hyeon is surprised she could read his mood so easily. He asks Lee Jae-hai to help him search for a brand new house. It needs to be quiet and secluded, leaving her completely stunned by the request. He explains that he received an urgent message in his Muram status window. Shin Hyeon admits he has no idea what the sender actually wants. However, an entity known as the God of the Heavens has targeted him. He has absolutely no clue what kind of opponent he is up against. Shin Hyeon admits his only weakness in this world is his sister, Yeon Sol. Lee Jae-hai is completely baffled, wondering if he really received such a message. Even if all this is true, she thinks separating is a terrible idea. It is incredibly unwise to live apart from her for her own sake. Staring at a family photo, Shin Hyeon sighs that Yeon Sol does not need him anymore. In fact, his sister told him those exact, painful words herself recently. The protective brother she once loved simply does not exist anymore, leaving him questioning everything. Wouldn't she be much happier if he just vanished again? Lee Jae-hai immediately objects to this. She hates meddling, but if her own brother ever said that, she would be furious. She would never forgive him, pointing out that he knows Yeon Sol best. He must understand his own sister far better than anyone else does. Suddenly, a young guild member approaches and calls out to Lee Jae-hai to interrupt them. He quickly reports to her that the grand festival is finally starting up. She snaps, asking if he was ever taught the basic courtesy of knocking. She tells Shin Hyeon they will finish this later, ordering him to stay put. Left alone, Shin Hyeon quietly wonders if she is genuinely mad at him. Outside, the announcers declare that the opening ceremony is about to begin. The prestigious Dawn and Twilight Guilds are proudly hosting this massive event. The leader steps forward. Chung Ho-sun represents the Dawn Guild as a crusader. Meanwhile, the Twilight Guild is sent out. Their deputy Seong Hyuk, who is a deadly assassin, the whispering audience wonders if Lee Jae-hai and Park Ta-hun were once in the same guild. The two old friends started their hunter journey together, and now they meet at the absolute top. One wonders what they are thinking. Park Ta-hun reaches out a hand, telling Lee Jae-hai that it has been a very long time. She calmly asks him how he is doing. Lee Jae-hai remarks that the guy who used to be her mere deputy has done quite well for himself, rising up to become a prominent guild leader. Park Ta-hun smiles and agrees, but adds that he heard rumors of her secretly mentoring Rookie. He wonders why she is suddenly so keen on helping the weak, plotting secretly. That this time he will eliminate this newcomer himself, and she won't be able to stop him. Lee Jae-hai simply retorts that she will take that as a compliment from the head of the Twilight Guild as they formally shake hands. Soon after, the intense fighting begins and a hunter activates his consecutive attack skill, which his opponent instantly parries. She completely misjudges her opponent's strength, sending her flying backward from the sheer force. The impact slams her hard onto the stone arena floor as the dust settles around her. Blood trickles from her mouth, and the commentators announce that match number 5 is officially over. The winner is announced as Songmo, representing the Twilight Guild. Park Ta-hun scoffs, saying this is exactly what he expected from the Dawn Guild. It did not last long at all. Praising Songmo, he boasts that with these warriors, there is no reason to worry. Listening to his bragging, Lee Jae-hai finds him incredibly arrogant. Park Ta-hun then excuses himself for a moment, saying he hopes the next round is just as entertaining. Meanwhile, in a quiet, secluded spot away from the crowd, His subordinate Seong Hyuk approaches, quietly asking if he can take care of Lee Jae-hai. Park Tahan warns him not to get ahead of himself, telling him there is no rush. He adds that everything has its time, then asks if he knows the squad leader. Cha Yun-sol, Seong Hyuk smiles and nods, saying he understands what needs to be done. He promises to pay her a visit. Back at the tournament, the host announces that the next fierce battles will take place in the Battle of Archers Arena. It is a rare opportunity to watch the top elite marksmen from every guild compete. As the matches prepare to start, the host mentions that this year boasts many outstanding talents. Personally, he is cheering for the young and talented Cha Yun-sol. She is already achieving amazing results, and honestly, the girl is just built different. Word is she was involved in a terrible accident at the Red Wolf Dungeon. Nearby hunters whisper, questioning why Lee Jae-hai would even let her participate. They mock her, saying she basically ruined her entire squad in that raid. Overhearing their gossip, Cha Yun-sol confronts them coldly, telling them to say it to her face instead of whispering behind her back like cowards. Embarrassed, the men quickly scurry away. Alone now, she realizes something painful. She has not spoken a single word to her brother since that faithful day. Just thinking about him makes her boil with anger, even though he is completely to blame. Her thoughts are interrupted when she is called to enter a private waiting room. A mysterious guest is waiting for her, catching Cha Yun-sol completely off guard. With no appointment scheduled, she cautiously steps inside to see who it is. Lee Jae-hai greets her warmly, asking if she is feeling all right for the match. Yun-sol insisted she was fine, asking why the deputy leader summoned her before the presentation even started. Lee Jae-hai claimed she only came to support a promising guild employee. She wanted to find Shin Hyun, but he was nowhere to be found. Lee Jae-hai admitted she did not know what happened between them. But still, wouldn't it be better to just talk and clear the air? Yun-sol snapped back, asking since when the deputy leader meddled in family business. Lee Jae-hai urged her to calm down, claiming she was only worried for them. Yun-sol did not hide her dislike for the deputy guild leader. She could feel the woman tightening her grip on her brother's life. In that quiet moment, Yun-sol realized she finally understood everything. Her brother became a hunter right after meeting the deputy. Barely any time had passed, and he was already slipping away from normal life. Yun-sol muttered that her brother never should have become a hunter. Why must he get stronger, chasing some secret he refuses to share? She whispered that her brother no longer looked like the person she knew. He felt entirely too distant, someone she could no longer reach. Tears finally spilled over, and she covered her face, ashamed to show such weakness. Yun-sol choked out an apology, but Lee Jae-hai softly defended Shin Hyun. She knew his pain because she had lived through that exact same agony. Shin Hyun had dragged himself back from a literal hell of constant death. After surviving a place like that, keeping your humanity is almost impossible. But for his sister's sake, Shin Hyun was desperately trying to act normal. He locked away the ugliest parts of his life, keeping her in the dark. Yun-sol admitted it felt deeply unsettling hearing about her brother from a stranger. If that was true, her brother clearly saw her as completely unreliable. He only trusted Lee Jae-hai, who stood on equal footing with him now. Lee Jae-hai tracked down Shin Hyun, admitting she had been searching for him. She asked if he was truly that deeply concerned about his little sister. Shin Hyun coldly muttered that he was only passing by, but she persisted. Shin Hyun tensed as she noted how much he resembled Park Tahan. She pointed out that Yun-sol was changing too, slipping away from her old self. Shin Hyun frowned, wondering what game the deputy was trying to play. Did he truly believe keeping his sister in absolute ignorance was protecting her? If he had something to say, he needed to speak up immediately. Gesturing for him to follow, the deputy leader ordered Shin Hyun to tag along. She wanted to show him a side of his sister he never knew existed. The archers took their places as dawn and twilight prepared to clash. Yun-sol readied her bow while Park Tahan watched with a cruel grin. He silently hoped they would thoroughly enjoy the little gift he prepared. This was merely the opening act of his massive, multi-phase trap. Whispers echoed through the team's mental link as they coordinated. Yun-sol rapidly calculated their coordinates, adjusting their formations on the fly. But the deputy's words about her brother, desperately trying, kept ringing in her head. She gritted her teeth, knowing her brother was making a terrible mistake. Did he truly think keeping silent would hide everything from her forever? He shares everything with Lee Jae-hai, still treating his sister like a child. He thinks he is the only one who changed during this time. Then warning comes in. Her next enemy is exactly 300 meters away. A basic bow and arrow in this arena, absolute madness, they warn her. She just smiles, calmly stating everything is under complete control. The girl aims, her precision sniper skill instantly flashes to life. Her arrow screams through the wind at absolute lightning speed toward the target. Unleashing her guiding sword technique, she catches her opponent off guard. He never sees it coming. The arrow tears straight through his chest. A system alert instantly flashes. Hang Jae-won from the elite Twilight team is down. He is completely out, eliminated by a single brutal shot. Yun Sol stands tall. Do not look down on me, brother. Her mind drifts back to her childhood, remembering the whispers of pity. The poor little girl who lost her entire family in a single day. She heard the adults whispering that her brother's body was never found. He was not dead. She decided he was definitely alive. He would come back to her. She believed it with all her heart. Years later, the saint suddenly appeared on TV, delivering a chilling message. An era of absolute terror was coming. Humanity had to evolve. Yun Sol stared at the screen. Was this broadcast a glitch? Monsters, dungeons, and hunters, the world was changing fast. Had the entire world gone completely mad, or was this her new reality? Even so, her belief that her brother would return only grew stronger. Soon after, she stepped up to take the hunter aptitude test. The system confirmed her path, officially naming her an archer class. Surviving on state welfare, she enrolled at the prestigious Hunter Academy. But academy life was brutal. The other kids bullied her mercilessly. Yun Sol quietly set her spoon down on the table, keeping her calm. They kept teasing her, angry that a charity case got in for free. But they pushed the wrong girl. Yun Sol had reached her limit. She grabbed her heavy metal tray and smashed it right into his face. Standing up, she told them that if they are jealous, become orphans too. If you have the guts, she challenges, follow me outside right now. She graduated as the absolute top student, proving everyone wrong, and was immediately recruited into Dawn, the elite guild of dreams. Yun Sol stepped onto the battlefield, embarking on her journey as a hunter. She displayed pure courage, never once showing fear before the monsters. She survived hell to get here. No pathetic beast would break her. Every single battle she fought ended the exact same way for her. She secured victory at any cost, even when Lee Jae-hai intervened. The deputy guildmaster quickly realized her help was completely unneeded. Yun Sol flatly explained that she is used to handling things alone. Amused, Lee Jae-hai asked for her name, and the girl answered proudly. The deputy noted that her intense eyes seemed to be chasing someone. That hunger would make her incredibly strong. Lee Jae-hai promised her that. Remember that name. Yun Sol caught Jae-hai's eye and became the youngest leader of the Dawn group. She wasn't the only one feeling regret. Yun Sol gladly ran a powerhouse guild like Dawn, holding things together until her brother returned. She absolutely refused to let any weakness creep in. But people like her always stayed hidden in the shadows. To her older martial artist brother, she probably seemed lacking in many ways. Still, Yun Sol would never forgive him for treating her like a weak child. Pushing ahead in the tournament, she told her teammates she was changing positions. Quickly moving out, she was suddenly targeted by incoming arrows. The hunt was on. She heard a voice order the archers to hold their fire because they already had her pinned, but she telling them to stop shooting since she was caught, but she was already wounded. In the arm, luckily the muscle was fine, but the arrow pierced her skin anyway. Since training arrows are blunt, this should have been physically impossible. Bleeding heavily, she realized with dread that the enemy was using real combat arrows. They sneered at her, warning that absolutely no help was coming. They had blocked all radio signals and even prevented the broadcast cameras from filming this location, but Yun Sol calmly replied that she had never relied on anyone else in her entire life. Gripping the arrow, she pulled it straight out of her bleeding arm, tossed it aside, and asked why they were making such an insane fuss just to catch her. She loaded 3 arrows into her bow at once, declaring that today would be their end. She dared them to shoot. Instantly, a volley of hostile arrows rushed toward her, but she was ready. The commander of the Dawn squad leaped high as they sailed harmlessly past. She activated her specialized precise arrow skill again. Releasing the string, all 3 shots flew toward their targets leaving her enemies stunned. Only one survived, desperately fleeing. To another spot, Yun's soul cursed under her breath, realizing she missed. The survivor gasped in disbelief. She had hit 3 targets simultaneously while an incredibly unstable position. Even worse, she did it using weak training arrows. Yet she still unleashed lethal, destructive force from such extreme distances. Snipers dominate at extreme distances, while swift rangers excel in deadly, close-range skirmishes. There is a massive gap separating these 3 archer classes. A full ranger squad normally holds a massive, overwhelming advantage, but Yun's soul completely outclassed them all with ease. Luckily, the sharp pain in her arm was manageable, and she knew she could easily finish off the rest, the survivor. Aimed back, but in that exact second, she triggered her sniper skill and fired. The enemy dodged, only to realize a curving arrow was tracking him. Enraged, the man screamed that this was totally unfair. How could she possibly possess such a technique? Then the shot struck. He collapsed, coughing up blood. Meanwhile, Yun's soul slipped onto the roof of a neighboring building. That gave her the ultimate high ground vantage point and a massive advantage. Both remaining archers locked targets as the tension peaked. Suddenly, her brother's guidance echoed in her mind, urging her to use martial arts. With perfect focus, Yun's soul caught the incoming arrow barehanded. Her opponent gasped in disbelief. How was this even possible? Yun's soul clenched her fist, closing the distance in a flash. The young man was completely off guard, completely missing her right hook aimed straight at his jaw. The devastating strike hit so hard that he lost his balance, crashed hard into the wall, and crumpled onto the floor. Yun's soul looked down, asking him what he planned to do now that he was all alone. Flexing her fingers, she told him to speak up if he had any final words. Because his time was up, terrified, the young man immediately yelled out that he surrendered. But before she could react, her teammates told her they would handle this guy. Right on cue, an arrow flew through the air, slamming straight into the back of his head. The hunter praised her, saying she did great. Yun's soul confirmed that communications were finally back online. She confirmed communications were successfully restored, asking if the reinforcements had arrived too late. Dawn Guild claimed victory in the 6th archery survival tournament. The confused crowd had no idea what had happened. In the blind spots hidden from the broadcast cameras, 4 hunters from the Twilight team lay defeated right in front of Yun's soul, proving she was the clear superstar favorite in this battle. The crowd openly admitted that her performance was absolutely magnificent. Honestly, we expected nothing less from a talent like her. Still, she wished she could have won purely on her own merits, testing only her sniper skills, yet his timely hint saved her life. She survived the battle. Looking up, Yun's soul spotted a helicopter flying by. Her brother Shin Hyun was inside, standing right beside him. Lee Jae-hai asked if he had watched his sister's incredible performance. Shin Hyun nodded, saying he saw how she narrowly avoided defeat by using the secret martial arts he taught her. Honestly, he admitted, he really did not know his own sister well anymore. He wondered when exactly Yun's soul had grown this strong. In his mind, she was still a little girl. He had to accept it. She was not that child anymore. He should have known she would succeed. Lee Jae-hai asked what they should do next, since he had so clearly instructed her to use those secret moves, and luckily none of it was broadcasted. No distant cameras or witnesses caught them. Still, Lee Jae-hai warned that if the sharp-eyed Park Tae-hun had noticed, they would be in trouble. Too late for that. Park Tae-hun had actually witnessed everything. As the town celebrated, everyone was in high spirits. Later, Yun's soul asked Shin Hyun what he honestly thought of her strength, adding that compared to a legendary swordmaster like him, she was still pretty lacking. If it were not for those hidden martial arts, reaching the finals was impossible. Her internal energy was running dangerously low, meaning she was on the verge of defeat. Shin Hyun shook his head, completely disagreeing. In his eyes, she was incredibly strong, winning purely through her own hard work, her hunting skills, and training both paid off. Then, Shin Hyun apologized for keeping secrets from her, explaining he just wanted to be a normal brother to her. He added that he still saw her as that same innocent, sweet kid from their childhood. But Yun's soul had matured into someone far stronger and more resolved. She quietly admitted that her whole motivation was finding the exact person who ruined their family. That was the sole reason she became a hunter to begin with. She hoped that reaching the maximum level would finally give her some kind of Yet before she even noticed, she was totally hooked on the training. Honestly, it never felt too hard, which was how she reached this incredible physical and mental peak, shaking off the memories, Yunxial sighed. Sure, that struggle was behind her, but her brother had to promise her one thing. He must never abandon her again. For Shin Hun, that went without saying. But to Yunxial, nothing was guaranteed. For the longest time, she felt entirely shut out. Knowing Shin Hun was keeping dark secrets only made her feel deeply isolated. She looked him in the eye, demanding he never hide things from her again. Linking their pinkies, the siblings swore an oath to stay together. But Shin Hun had one more major detail to share. He casually reminded her that his actual title was the Invincible Sword Emperor, not just any regular fighter. Suddenly, the speakers blared. The next fight was starting soon, meaning it was time for Shin Hun to head out. Yunxial stared in disbelief. Was he seriously entering the arena in those everyday clothes? This was a highly formal event, but Shin Hun just shrugged and called his outfit comfortable. Changing the subject, he asked if she found their opponents a bit strange. It felt like they were deliberately hunting her down. Yunxial agreed. Dungeons usually spark friction whenever the Dawn and Twilight guilds cross paths. Still, an open, coordinated assault like this was incredibly bizarre. Then again, she faced this kind of ruthless competition all the time. Enemies always target the strongest high-tier hunters first to clear the board. Nearby, the guild leader mentioned hearing great things about Shin Hun from Deputy Li Jaihai. He asked if the young hunter wanted to lead the frontline vanguard. Since that was his specialty, the boss turned to ask how everyone else was preparing. Shin Hun leaned over, asking Li Jaihai if this guy was seriously the guild leader. She warned him to show some respect, considering the leader was a level 60 hunter. Still, Shin Hun privately noted that the guy was far weaker than himself. Offering a polite farewell, the leader wished them luck in their upcoming battle. Shin Hun promised Li Jaihai he would not use any martial arts in combat. He quietly reminded her that one should never forget, ultimate, highly mastered martial arts basically look identical to magic anyway. The young warrior added his sincere thanks to Li Jaihai for helping him reconcile with his sister. Li Jaihai smiled, genuinely glad, and wished the siblings good luck. Suddenly, a few junior hunters approached, admitting they heard stories about his power from the deputy. She had highly praised Shin Hun as an absolute combat prodigy. Naturally, they hoped he would protect their vanguard team, but Shin Hun completely ignored their flattery. His mind was elsewhere, focused on the assassins who targeted his sister earlier. Those thugs were clearly acting under strict orders. Only one ruthless mastermind possessed that kind of authority, Park Ti-hoon, the dreaded leader of the Twilight Guild. Suddenly, the entrance doors swung wide open. Park Ti-hoon stepped inside, apologizing if he had interrupted their vital rest. Behind him stood his silent assistant, Soo-hyul. Watching them, Shin Hun quickly realized that if the mysterious messenger was indeed the legendary heavenly warrior, then Park Ti-hoon, his loyal subordinate, was definitely mixed up in this. The guildmaster acts innocent, asking if this is not just a friendly little sparring match. He claims he only stopped by to say hello and wonders if something is wrong. But the young hunter makes it clear they are not on such friendly terms. Park Ta-hun is taken aback, wondering if his acting is really that bad. The truth is, he only showed up to spy on a supposedly powerful figure. Ta-hun turns directly to our hero, claiming he has heard quite a lot about him. The guild leader extends his hand, saying he is pleased to meet Shin Hyun. Ta-hun asks to make sure this is indeed their very first meeting, right? Shin Hyun confirms that it is, while quietly analyzing the man before him. He realizes his profound style is simply not resonating with anyone yet. Ta-hun is completely in the dark, wondering where this sudden power came from. How did Yun Sol learn these moves without ever stepping foot inside the Murim? Is mastering true martial arts even possible? Shin Hyun then mentions an old connection. He knows someone in the Twilight Guild, and so Chaho steps up to greet him. Chaho says it has been a while, recalling how he once tried to get closer. He tried using a secretary to reach Ta-hun, but things did not go well. His sister caused absolute chaos for them during their last battle. She gave the Twilight Hunters a hard time, and Ta-hun is quick to agree. He admits her skills are incredible, but Shin Hyun is not done speaking yet. He warns Ta-hun to remember this, because there is a heavy price to pay. Ta-hun says he looks forward to it, while Shin Hyun fumes inside with silent rage. This man dared touch his sister, and any connection to the heavenly warrior is secondary. He will put on a show, a real show, one that won't disappoint. He plans to wipe the entire Twilight Guild off the face of the earth. Get ready, because the announcer is introducing the massive main event now. No words are needed as the powerful leaders of both massive guilds step forward. This is the legendary clash between the Dawn and Twilight guilds. Representing the Dawn is an absolute super rookie who has been turning heads lately. He scored a personal invitation from none other than Lee Jihai herself. Stepping up to fight is the head of the martial arts guild, Shin Hyan. This is the first time an outsider has ever joined this massive battle. Everyone is asking who this guy is, and he is about to face a lethal rival. The formidable leader of the Twilight Vanguard steps up, whispering with sheer arrogance. He remarks that the rumors are true, and this rookie has a pretty cocky face. The announcer introduces the brilliant elite mage representing the Twilight side. The crowd roars for the flame of the fire dragon, Ryu Seongan. This fiery hunter promises to burn Shin Hyan to absolute ashes. Flame of the fire dragon, is this guy actually serious? Is this guy seriously not embarrassed to say those lines out loud? The crowd gets ready for the opening match between Shin Hyan and Ryu Seongan. Tahan gives a ruthless pep talk, ordering his mage to show absolutely no mercy. He wants the rookie dead, demanding that the mage unleash his full power. Suddenly Shin Hyan floats right up, straight into the air. The mage wonders if this is some kind of cheap trick as the announcer gasps. Shin Hyan shows off his incredible skills by effortlessly hovering above them. That skill belongs to the sorcerer class. He is showing off his power. Plus, Hunter Shin Hyung is showing some seriously impressive control over his magic. Hovering at that height takes real skill. Is this his strategy? The guild master whispers to Lee Jai-hai, asking if the guy has a plan. She answers that there is no plan, none, he just wants to show off. Shin Hyung eyes his opponent. Before him stands a level 50 hunter. It is the mage Ryu Seong, someone close to Seo Kangjin's rank. If Shin Hyung uses his martial arts, this guy will not stand a chance. But fighting with basic hunter skills might actually make this fun. Right now, our hero has already climbed his way to level 53. Despite growing so fast, he still lacks actual hunter experience. Suddenly, he spots Guild Master Park, Taehyun watching him like a hawk. The man wants to figure him out, but Shin Hyung has other plans. Let him stare until his eyes dry up, he will get absolutely nothing. Shin Hyung will not reveal his cards, then, out of nowhere, a massive wave of energy spheres created by Shin Hyung rains down on the arena. Ryu Seong quickly blocks them with a blazing barrier of pure fire. He knows these raw mana spheres are just a basic starter skill. The kid is just testing him. Ryu Seong retaliates, swinging a fiery whip. He tries to corner Shin Hyung. Meanwhile, our hero analyzes his opponent. He is dealing with a sorcerer. This guy has something up his sleeve. Remember, there are only 3 classes of mages. First, the non-combat artisans. They craft items and skill cubes. Second, we have combat-focused wizards. They infuse element attributes into their mana. Finally, there are the sorcerers. These guys represent magic itself. They are more like walking supernatural anomalies. They use flight and teleportation, completely ignoring the rules of physics. In actual combat, they typically stick to the rear for support roles. But do not underestimate them. Sometimes they unleash an unpredictable secret weapon. Ryu Seong laughs and warns that if Shin Hyung has a trick, he better use it now, or he will burn to ashes right here. With a roar, the Twilight Hunter unleashes another blinding wave of fire. The entire crowd watches in shock as Ryu Seong's flames completely swallow Shin Hyung. It looks like our hero has been totally blown to pieces. Nobody expected anything less from such a brutal fire dragon spell. The Dawn Guild leaders watch the center of the arena with bated breath. But once the thick smoke clears, everyone is in for a shock. Shin Hyung stands there completely unharmed. He is safe and untouched. Honestly, our hero thought he was the only combat mage around. Realizing they think alike actually dampens his mood a little bit. Meanwhile, Ryu Seong is absolutely furious that the kid is still standing. Unscratched even, he glares and warns Shin Hyung one last time. If he does not want to end up crawling on the dirty floor, he needs to show his real power now. Ryu Seong activates his ultimate. It is the March of the Fire Dragon skill. Shin Hyung is genuinely surprised. But if his opponent is going all out, our hero will too. He easily dodged, lowering his finger to step completely out of Ryu Xionggan's fiery reach. Ryu Xionggan couldn't understand it. Who exactly was this crazy Shin Hyan? Everyone was left speechless as Shin Hyan casually dodged those blazing flames. How did he survive that dragon strike with such fast movements? The spectators gasped. They could have sworn Shin Hyan was burned to a crisp, but somehow he was untouched. It made no sense. This guy had pulled off advanced magic with a simple snap. The guildmaster demanded to know what just happened. Li Jai just laughed, knowing none of these people could actually read his real power. He had successfully fooled everyone in the arena into thinking it was standard magic. Honestly, even Li Jai did not fully grasp the trick behind his move. But the crowd saw one thing clearly: his ultimate technique was totally useless. Ryu Xionggan bowled with rage and charged straight at Shin Hyan with his fists flying. Shin Hyan was surprised. Why was this guy getting so incredibly worked up? He casually offered to show his angry opponent a little trick as a consolation prize. Ryu Xionggan wouldn't listen, screaming at him to shut up. The aggressive Twilight Hunter kept pressing forward with relentless anger. Everyone watched as Ryu Xionggan threw a series of incredibly furious attacks. Yet Shin Hyan held his ground, effortlessly keeping the mad attacker at bay. The duel was turning into an absolute thriller. Who would have guessed this? Seeing two powerful mages duke it out in a fistfight was pure madness. Shin Hyan remarked that his opponent had decent moves, but made one fatal mistake. Ryu Xionggan had completely ruined his mood by leaving himself wide open like that. His stance was completely off. He should have kept his weight grounded in his legs. Instead, he foolishly jumped up. Shin Hyan pointed out another glaring rookie mistake. He needed to stop raising his shoulders so high whenever he went to strike. He had to watch his target. With a swift hit, Ryu Xionggan was sent flying. The dazed Twilight Hunter had no idea how Shin Hyan had managed that hit. Shin Hyan walked over to him, explaining he had trained in martial arts for years. He coldly added that his opponent clearly lacked real, down and dirty combat experience. He leaned in, pointing out that raw talent alone was never enough. He knew he had thoroughly shattered the hothead's pride with that simple truth. Ryu Xionggan vowed to burn his rival, even if it drained all his mana. He was determined to reduce him to nothing but ashes on the arena floor. The enraged Twilight Hunter summoned his ultimate move again, the fiery dragons. Standing right in front of the colossal beast, Shin Hyan remained completely unfazed. He muttered that if it was going to be like this, he would actually have to try. The announcer screamed that Ryu Xionggan was about to melt the entire stadium down. Wildfire dragons were flying everywhere, leaving Shin Hyan with absolutely nowhere to run. The entire arena was swallowed by a massive wave of exploding flames. The heat was suffocating as the host declared that Shin Hyan was cornered. How could anyone possibly hope to defend against such an insane, relentless onslaught? Yet the unbelievable happened: that monstrous attack could not break his barrier. Shin Hyan muttered that while it was annoying, blocking this was actually quite simple. He confidently declared that as long as his body remained completely invincible, he would never feel the biting cold or the burning heat of any attack. Shin Hyan is extremely tough to handle, flipping his opponent off. In declaring that his absolutely pathetic attack could not even scratch him, the show host then notes that Shin Hyan easily dealt with that terrifying power in an instant, sweeping away those massive fire dragons like they were nothing. What kind of power is this? Could it be gravity control? Even Ryu Xionggan is completely speechless. His magic seems totally unreal, leaving everyone present in the crowd completely shocked and utterly amazed. Shin Hyan's sheer force is way beyond imagination. How could any regular human control gravity so effortlessly? Is he really a beginner? Our main character secretly notes that this match is actually much more fun than he had expected, declaring it is time to end this. Meanwhile, leader Park Ti-hoon asks Seonghyuk who is up next, and the loyal assistant replies that Cho Jae-hyun will be next. The leader calls it perfect, telling his assistant right away to warn Cho Jae-hyun that he must absolutely use their powerful legendary weapon, the Twilight Spear that protects them, capable of completely wiping out the entire Dawn Guild. The crowd is thrilled. Finally, this hunter steps up, Spear of Twilight and the ultimate mage slayer. The show host shouts that, judging by his own nickname, Cho Jae-hyun has never lost to mages. Warriors generally have a higher win rate over magic users. Regardless, Shin Hyan stretches his arms, saying he is eagerly looking forward to fighting the famous Mage Slayer, but Park Tae-hoon thinks he is too relaxed. This time will be different, as long as he remains a simple mage. He can never defeat Cho Jae-hyun. The Epic Sun Festival battle enters its second match. The knight's skill reinforcement is ready to trigger. First, Cho Jae-hyun then instantly activates all kinds of physical strength buffs for himself. He immediately charges straight at Shin Hyun. Our hero is completely surprised. Is he really breaking right through his front line so suddenly? This opponent is incredibly fast. In an instant, they get very close and stare each other down. Our protagonist quickly realizes that his current foe is not just fast, but also holds immense physical strength and a very strong will. Against an opponent like this, aerial combat is best. Jae-hyun activates then his unique skill to attack once more, executing a massive and very high deadly strike. Shin Hyun is forced to fall back into defense. This is truly an incredibly brutal assault. Strike. Jae-hyun refuses to let him escape, continuing his relentless attack. Without hesitation, Shin Hyun finds himself lying on the arena floor. His eyes are filled with complete bewilderment. Meanwhile, Jae-hyun continues to hold his ground inside the arena. Shin Hyun cannot even remember the last time he got slammed into the hard floor. He quietly thinks that if he could only use his own martial arts, he would have finished this opponent off in 1 second. Our hero thinks Jae-hyun is pretty stubborn. Shin Hyun now gives a thumbs down, declaring he will show his opponent exactly what he wants. Jae-hyun lands another strike, but Shin Hyun easily dodges it. In an instant, everyone notices that the mighty hunter Shin Hyun is using that mysterious skill again. Jae-hyun is completely frozen. He cannot move at all after rushing nonstop. However, then in the very next moment, the impossible happens. Hunter Cho Jae-hyun actually manages to stand up under terrifying pressure. It is amazing. Jae-hyun asks if his opponent really terrifying pressure filled the air. Jeong wondered if his opponent survived. Did he really think gravity alone could stop him? He mocked, declaring that now it was his turn. But Shin Hyun just smirked back. Why on earth did his opponent assume he was using gravity? Our hero closed in instantly, landing a devastating strike directly to the helmet. The armor shattered. Cho Jae-hyun never expected such insane speed and power. He let out a painful scream, shocking everyone watching in the arena. Even the master of the Twilight Guild stood in total shock. The crowd immediately assumed gravity was used again, but they were completely wrong. This was a totally different, mysterious force, and it completely crushed Cho Jae-hyun. Everyone was dying to know, what kind of overpowered skill was Shin Hyun actually using? Shin Hyun admitted his opponent was tough, noting it was impressive he survived that hit. Then he decided to clear the air. His power was not gravity at all. He controls attraction and repulsion, a unique skill forged through absolute blood, sweat, and tears. He calls it yin and yang conductivity, a legendary skill linked directly to magic. This ability binds directly to his magic, letting him freely manipulate physical forces. By imbuing his mana with these poles, Shin Hyun controls the battlefield like a magnet. He teased that if Cho Jae-hyun knew basic science, this should be simple to grasp. Traction pulls any object directly to him, while repulsion violently blasts everything away. He suggested this physics lesson might be tough to grasp, but easy to feel. It is basically a physical cheat code that is incredibly easy to remember. With one precise push, he completely shut down his opponent's momentum. But Cho Jae-hyun grinned, claiming his opponent made a massive rookie mistake. He shouldn't have explained his weakness. The Twilight Hunter activated his true power. Park Tae-hyun mentally asked Lee Jae if she knew why Cho Jae-hyun is so feared. He is called the Mage Destroyer for a very specific reason. If Shin Hyun relies entirely on his magic to fight, then this match is already over. The Guildmaster smirked, fully expecting Shin Hyun to die right here in the arena. Suddenly, a powerful counter spell activated, instantly locking down all active magic. For 10 critical seconds, Shin Hyun cannot cast a single spell. This completely caught him off guard. Cho Jae-hyun seized the moment, preparing a lethal strike while the magic was sealed. We flash back to before the match, where Park Tae-hyun ordered him to use this forbidden move. Cho Jae-hyun hesitated, asking why they needed to reveal such a trump card to the public. But the order was absolute. The Guildmaster knew Shin Hyun was hiding massive potential. A mage with magnetic powers is way too dangerous to be left alive. They did not care about playing fair. Shin Hyun had to be eliminated, period. Back in the present, Cho Jae-hun lunged forward with a devastating, heavy blow. Somehow Shin Hye-in reacted just in time, narrowly dodging the lethal strike. Cho Jae-hun grinned, knowing his secret counter spell had worked like a charm. The spell completely seals off the target's magic, leaving them totally defenseless. He mocked Shin Hye-in, declaring the match was officially over without his spells. The arena fell dead silent. Do you think this is really the end for our hero? The tables had turned completely. Cho Jae-hun was absolutely dominating the defenseless mage. Even the master of the Dawn Guild stood up, shocked by this dirty tactic. Park Tae-hun just laughed it off, calling his hunter a bit too hot-headed. He joked that Cho Jae-hun simply hated being attacked with magic from behind. He smirked, confident that Shin Hye-in was completely finished. Lee Jae-hai was deeply alarmed, her mind screaming in absolute panic. She wanted Cha Shin-hyun to run away immediately. The match no longer mattered. He had to surrender. In a fight like this, martial arts were useless. Cha Shin-hyun was just amused. Did they really expect him to run away? Jae-hun declared that escaping or surrendering was no longer an option. His massive attack power boost was active, leaving no room for retreat. An insane concentration of energy gathered directly on the tip of his spear. It was enough to obliterate an entire building. Could Cha Shin-hyun survive? How could he survive without magical defense? Jae-hun swung his spear to strike. He charged at his defenseless foe, but Cha Shin-hyun stood completely calm. His steady eyes betrayed his sheer determination. The young man was ready. Jae-hun was stunned. Why did he think he could win? Dawn's leader gasped. He was alarmed. Why was Lee Jae-hai clutching her head? Even Park Tae-hun suddenly clutched his head. The leader of Twilight felt a heavenly resonance. An incredible spiritual energy began to vibrate. What was this pressure? Park Tae-hun realized he had never felt such power before. It was a massive, terrifying wave of pressure locking directly onto the approaching Jae-hun, the hunter. Froze, hesitant. Could this be magic? No, the active counter spell made. Sure of it, yet the Twilight hunter was bound by invisible chains, unable to understand what skill was hitting him. Cha Shin-hyun quietly explained that this was no mere skill, it was true martial arts. If he was curious, he could ask his leader, Park Tae-hun, about it later. Cha Shin-hyun noted that moments ago, he almost backed down when they told him to run. But he absolutely hates running away. He assumed Jae-hun was completely shocked, since only his target could see and feel this overwhelming power. The force binding his opponent's body was a legendary technique called the spiritual sword, a master tier power unlocked only after reaching the 40th internal level. They call it the spiritual sword manifestation, even though it is a sword style. The blade itself represents pure human will. Cha Shin-hyun noted that once a warrior achieves this tier, they can easily overpower any foe or split the earth, but a quick ending like that is too boring. Cha Shin-hyun swung his blade, declaring it was time to teach this kid a lesson. The impact was so devastating that Jae-hun screamed out, coughing up fresh blood. Cha Shin-hyun asked if Park Tae-hun was watching closely, adding that the leader of Twilight could watch all he wanted. This was the true martial arts he wanted to display. The whirlwind strike skill activated, shattering Jae-hun's body with crushing force. His bones cracked in multiple places, unleashing unbearable pain. The host screamed out in shock. What was even happening here? She thought Cha Shin-hyun had stopped using his strange skills, but the battle flipped completely. Now Jae-hun stood utterly powerless to resist. Was this due to the mysterious energy radiating from Cha Shin-hyun? The duel was clearly over. The medical staff had to rush onto the field immediately. Cha Shin-hyun felt incredibly refreshed. He had not unleashed his martial arts in ages. This was actually pretty fun. The announcer declared Jae-hun out of the tournament. In this second major clash of the legendary Sun Festival, the Peerless Hunter Shin Hye-in won. Park Tae-hun was absolutely fuming after this. Right after, the victor withdrew from the competition, claiming his mother was completely exhausted. No victory, neither Dawn nor Twilight managed to secure the prestigious festival trophy. Instead, the Martial Arts Guild unexpectedly snatched first place. Talk about an underdog victory, he is a star now. Meanwhile, Twilight's prestige hit rock bottom. Outside, Sucho stood right in front of the locked office door, hesitating to enter. Inside, Park Tae-hun sat entirely alone, drowning in overwhelming anxiety. This was entirely ridiculous. He was first terrified and now mocked. Even if it was just a brief moment, the unmatched power Shin Hye-in displayed was completely absolute. His actions screamed that no one there was his rightful equal. Park Tahan was forced to admit it, if that was true. Then there was no longer any reason to hide his secret resources. He immediately marched out of his office, telling Su Cho to follow him. The shocked assistant asked where. Park Tahan replied to see the Heavenly Warrior. 1 week after the festival, Dawn Guild headquarters was absolute chaos. Phones rang constantly with desperate inquiries regarding the legendary Shin Hyan. Tired employees kept explaining that he was not their guild member. They even had to repeatedly assure callers that Lai Jai wasn't dating him. Speak of the devil, our hero was currently sitting in her private office. The assistant stepped inside, reporting over 300 calls and endless emails. There were easily 3 times as many messages, completely flooding their system. Everything was addressed directly to the Martial Arts Guild and Shin Hyan. The report noted that most came from eager reporters and hopeful new recruits. They also received 8 collaboration offers, alongside multiple ad proposals. The assistant spoke of these proudly, almost as if he were a hunter himself, demanding to reject everything except one. Suddenly a knock sounded. A staff member apologized politely, saying that the chief secretary needed to step outside and check something immediately. Lai Jai sighed, explaining that this was the cost of sudden stardom. Shin Hyan replied that while he tolerated fame, he hated the fuss. Lai Jai then apologized to Shin Hyan for bringing this up so late. Shin Hyan was genuinely surprised. What on earth was she talking about? She explained that she wanted to protect his identity from public exposure. She felt terrible for ignoring his opinion and acting without his consent. Doing so could have easily put Shin Hyan in extreme danger. Shin Hyan smiled, telling Lai Jai that she was worrying way too much. Did she honestly think he would get hurt over such minor details? It was annoying, but he simply preferred not to reveal his skills. Besides, what could Park Tahan possibly do with any of this information? His opponent's absolute limit was simply realizing Shin Hyan's overwhelming superiority. For now, he would likely remain quiet, but if Park Tahan ever dared to target Shin Hyan's sister, he would crush him instantly. Right then and there, Lai Jai agreed that Twilight's active movements had significantly decreased, though she still worried about their upcoming threat. The Dawn Guild won, leaving the enemy devastated. Park Tahan has locked himself away. He refuses to go anywhere, leaving other veteran hunters to scramble for answers. They are actively pounding on the Dawn Guild's door right now, begging for an alliance. It completely gave their guild the upper hand, and it was all thanks to Shin Hyan. Li Jai Hai officially thanks the young man on behalf of the Dawn Guild. A simple handshake seals it. Shin Hyan jokes that she is finally acting normal. He expects great things. He will definitely keep relying on her moving forward. Then he realizes the time. His little sister, Yun Sol, has been waiting a while. She had been waiting all day. Still, Li Jai Hai wonders why he chose this path. Out of all offers, he only accepted the alliance with the Cheonju Island Guild. Why reject all other proposals? Shin Hyan simply explains his personal reasons. He is tired of capital dungeons, especially since his level has completely plateaued. Besides, Cheonju Island is the perfect scenic spot for a quick family vacation. Shin Hyan promises Li Jai Hai he will return in about 1 month. They will meet again then. He trusts her, and he fully trusts his own strength. But get this, he has absolutely no clue about the storm that is brewing. Otherwise, he never would have boarded that fateful flight to Cheonju Island. Arriving at the airport, Yun Sol can barely contain her pure excitement. It is her first trip, and she eagerly asks about trying the local delicacies. Work comes first. Shin Hyan reminds her they are not here for fun. Just then, a loud voice calls out his name across the busy terminal. Representatives from the Cheonju Island Guild Union have arrived, immediately ruining Yun Sol's mood. Disappointment is written all over her face as the group formally greets them. Shin Hyan admits that relaxing here does sound like a pretty good idea. The man introduces himself as Kim Kiyul, the young leader of the Tamra Guild. He expresses deep gratitude. Meanwhile, Yun Sol observes that he looks incredibly young. Kim Kiyul admits he was highly impressed by Shin Hyan's recent festival battle. He became an instant fan. Then Kim Kiyul turns his attention to Yun Sol. The leader wonders if she is representing the Dawn Guild as an escort. An assistant suddenly interrupts, whispering that their tight schedule is running out. The guild leader laughs, admitting he completely lost track of the time. He apologizes, explaining they have an urgent stop to make first. Kim Keel promises to explain the busy itinerary on their way there. He guarantees that he will personally show them around the island later. Elsewhere, a shady man with a walkie-talkie reports that their target has arrived. His superior snaps back, telling him to speak Korean since they are in Korea. There is no need to risk giving their secret identity away so easily. The leader rises from his chair, declaring that their sweet vacation is officially over. He tells his crew it is time to get their hands dirty. They are actively baiting Shin Hyun straight into a deadly trap. Meanwhile, at their destination, Kim Hag-yeon steps forward with a wide grin. He personally shakes Shin Hyun's hand, offering an incredibly warm, welcoming greeting. Kim Hag-yeon is genuinely thrilled to host such distinguished guests on Cheonju Island. Acknowledging their long journey, he insists they must not refuse his special feast. Kim Keel promises to bring everything out right away. When the young man returns with a special treat, Yun Sol is instantly excited. She wonders if it is black pork or perch, while Kim Keel makes a grand promise. He claims that once they taste this delicacy, they will remember it forever. Kim Higun proudly presents what he calls a first-class, fresh, and hand-picked mandarin. Talk about a disappointment. Yun Sol ignores the mandarin and grabs raw onions. Shin Hyun tells his sister to behave herself and just wait a little longer. The guild leader apologizes for bringing up business the minute they arrive. But given the desperate situation, they have absolutely no time to waste. Kim Hagun explains that on Jeju Island, they used to be the sole rulers. But now two rival hunter organizations, Dawn and Twilight, are closing in. These massive groups are trying to build their own independent factions here. If they succeed, they will completely take control of Jeju Island. Both rival guilds have wanted this territory for a very long time. Until now, the Tamra Guild held all the authority on the island. But everything changed when high-risk dungeons started popping up everywhere. This year alone, 5 level 11 dungeons appeared at the exact same time. Only guilds with veteran hunters above level 40 can handle these zones. Unfortunately, the Tamra Guild is currently stuck with no way to clear them. They simply do not have high-level combatants on their roster anymore. That is why they desperately need a top-tier hunter like Shin Hyun. But Shin Hyun does not get it. Why not just ignore the dungeons? After all, the monsters rarely manage to break out and cause trouble. Kim Hagun quickly explains that if they fail to clear these gates now, they will lose all administrative rights to manage dungeons in the future. That entire authority would then be handed over to their bitter rivals. The guild leader adds that they fought hard to keep Dawn and Twilight out. If they lose control now, those rival factions will completely take over. Standing by and doing nothing means losing their home island forever. Kim Hagun admits they were about to drown in complete and utter despair, seeing no way out. But then Shin Hyun appeared like a sudden ray of hope for them. The guild leader explains that they got incredibly lucky to cross paths with him. He does not belong to either rival faction and remains completely independent. Kim Keel chimes in, calling the young hunter their ultimate saving grace. With his incredible strength on their side, they can protect their territory and survival. As Shin Hyun listens to them, he cannot help but think they are insane. Hearing this dramatic plea, Shin Hyun thinks these old guys are completely nuts. Still, Kim Hagun thanks him again for making the journey to their island. They promise to remember this massive favor for as long as they live. But our hero quickly waves it off, saying there is no need for gratitude. He only came here to level up his skills and pocket some cash. Shin Hyun suggests they cut the talk and head straight to the dungeon. However, Yun Sol interrupts, telling her brother there is one big issue left. Shin Hyun is confused. What on earth is she talking about now? Yun Sol still wants her black pork as we cut to the next dungeon. Inside, Tamra Guild members face a barrage of relentless explosions all around them. The hunter was furious because these relentless attacks had been going on for quite some time. But this did not faze the monsters at all. They were just too fast in this area. They were Ilmang fire poison monkeys, deadly, using unique abilities. The fire poison monkeys blasted the hunters with flames. One hunter yelled that they had to fall back to regroup. Then, another wave of attacks hit, and deadly venom began spreading all around them. The hunter knew they were venomous, but not like this. They were incredibly strong, unbelievably powerful. Things were rapidly getting much worse. The The situation degraded. How long could their fragile shield hold out? Too hot, too toxic. The devastating flames and poison were overwhelming. They knew they would die. The flames or poison would finish them. They are called bulldogs for a reason, relentless, fierce, unforgiving. No dog looks like this. They are pure fire and venom, Shin Hyan spoke. To him, these beasts were completely ordinary, nothing special at all. Kim Keel smiled. He expected nothing less from his incredible leader. Shin Hyan handled them all, completely alone, a truly masterclass performance. Everyone was saved, Yun Sol muttered, complaining to her brother about them. Kim Keel added a comment. The rescuers allowed him to save. His magical power, the deputy head of the Tamar Guild agreed. He had not used a single drop of his own mana. Now he could finish his duties easily, no trouble at all. Seizing the opportunity, the Tamar Guild hunters attacked the Ilmeng. Kim Keel was shocked. Was that a real lightning attack from Shin Hyan? Does he study magic, truly, an absolutely amazing guild leader? Shin Hyan asked the young man about his current magic level. Kim Keel replied he was just short of level 40, surprising Yun Sol. Was he stronger than her? Shin Hyan noted the others. Seemed close to level 40. He watched them fight and they were skilled. Kim Keel replied that it was only natural for them to be at that level. They run the dungeons. Shin Hyan found it interesting. The teleportation magic the young man used was quite fascinating. Kim Keel replied that he trained constantly. It was very complex. A highly difficult power, but the Tamar Guild deputy head scoffed. It is not worth Shin Hyan's attention. Kim Keel was stunned. Did Shin Hyan understand this magic instantly? Just one glance, incredible, Shin Hyan had finally found his answer. Time to step in. His legendary intuition made everything crystal clear. He saw the truth of things, thanks to martial arts. Shin Hyan never needed to worry about any other stats besides intuition, no matter how deep his talent was, intuition remained his ultimate weapon. Seeing the essence was vital. Now our hero understood it all. Every single detail learned in an instant, he could master it. Shin Hyan wanted to show off, time to impress these hunters. He warned them not to blink. They were about to witness greatness. Kim Keel held his breath, watching his idol perform the magic of teleportation. Yun Sol watched closely, quite intrigued by her brother's next move. Shin Hyan asked if Kim Keel activated the teleportation spell, while a group of fiery poisonous monkeys was spotted in a nearby clearing. Kim Keel appeared and asked what these monsters were doing there. His sudden arrival caught the monkeys by surprise. Kim Keel smiled and waved, but the monkeys responded with pure aggression. He immediately activated the magical space right where he was standing. The monsters suddenly found themselves trapped in that same magic, which began rising high above the ground. A second later, Kim Keel was right next to Shin Hyan. Explaining that this was exactly how he cast his magic, Shin Hyan was surprised by such a strange combination. Kim Keel explained that he just directs a stream of mana at the monsters individually before forcing them to fly upward. That way he can drop them to their doom. The deputy head of the Tamra Guild noted he had limits to his power, only able to lift things up to 150 meters, and honestly, falling from that high up is a pretty brutal way to go. Yun Sol quietly thought he was a pretty creepy guy. Kim Keel added that the teleportation could be adjusted anywhere within his line of sight. Within that range, he could shift his target in any direction. The young man then asked why Shin Hyan wanted him to show and explain the skill. Could it actually be useful to him? Kim Keel was genuinely surprised, wondering if Shin Hyan could really use teleportation. Shin Hyan replied that after watching the magic closely twice and hearing the explanation, he now fully understood how to activate it. Shin Hyan was currently wedged between tree branches, so he figured it would take some practice to master this spell properly. Kim Keel then thanked him once more for his help, suggesting they finally take a break to eat. Yun Sol was stunned. With dangerous monkeys everywhere, why were they acting so casually when they knew there was threat of danger lurking? Kim Keel replied there was simply nothing they could do, but thanks to his guests, he could finally carve out a brief moment for lunch, especially since staying fed is so incredibly vital. Without food, keeping your energy up is impossible. Kim Keel noticed that Shin Hyan's teleportation skills were improving rapidly with every single try. Talk about an absolute cheat code. Clearly on another level, Shin Hyan pointed out that once you have Fully mastered even a single skill, learning new ones becomes way simpler. Shin Hyan promised that if Kim Keel kept training diligently, he would eventually catch up to him. Yun Sol thought her older brother was acting incredibly smug and she seriously wanted to smack him. She warned that if Kim Keel was blindly following her brother, hoping for some grand breakthrough, he should just give up now. Shin Hyan learned his skills in a completely unique way that only he could pull off. Kim Keel countered that as a leader, resting on his laurels instead of pushing forward would be wrong. Besides, he had recently started feeling like he had hit a wall. Kim Keel added that while he got her point, he genuinely wanted to learn something new from Shin Hyan. The guild deputy added that his team members truly believed in him, but he knew he had to become stronger so he would never let them down. Put their faith in him. The deputy guild master believed that if the young man could grow stronger, he would finally be able to protect his own comrades. Kim Keel apologized for bringing up such a heavy topic. Yun Sol tried the food and noted that the kimbap from Jeju Island was surprisingly delicious. Kim Keel was absolutely thrilled that they liked the kimbap, joking he could have brought an entire truckload of it. Yun Sol replied that that would be way too much. Shin Hyan asked how much time they had to hunt down these beasts. The deputy head of the Tamra Guild explained that the creatures were incredibly fast and numerous, making it hard to give a clear answer. Furthermore, there was a strict limit to how many times they could teleport. Yun Sol then asked if Kim Keel wiped out the monsters while they were distracted, who would take the blame. Meanwhile, Shin Hyan was studying his status screen. Yun Sol asked what her brother was up to. He simply replied that he was looking for a way out of this mess, and trust me, he never expected this secret skill to actually be useful. The skill was sovereignty. Every single time he activates this ability, nearby monsters instantly sense the presence of a higher being, showing complete submission and loyalty. He had acquired this rare power from a skill stone in the Panon dungeon. He originally used it hoping to learn a basic monster ability, but it functioned completely differently, turning out to be a rather formidable and powerful ability. The most interesting part was that through sheer willpower, the user can actually dominate the target's mind. Later, he decided to upgrade this skill by fusing it with the Sword of Control, which allowed him to force targets to obey specific actions. He had only used it a few times for fun, never testing if it would work against actual monsters. After all, dominating beast minds is incredibly tough. Still, he kept hoping the crazy power would actually work. Telepathic subjugation, the spell, instantly began spreading in every direction. Shin Hyan immediately felt the immense power stretching across a massive distance. He selected his target, and now, utilizing absolute mind control, he prepared to issue a command. He ordered all monsters to gather before him immediately. Shin Hyan clutched his head in pain. Kim Keel and Yun Sol asked if he had a massive headache. Shin Hyan ignored them, asking if Kim Keel had enough mana for teleportation. The deputy chief replied he had enough power for about 5 minutes. Shin Hyan warned them that massive hordes of beasts were charging their way at an incredible speed. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently. The hunters were terrified, wondering if it was a sudden earthquake. They had never faced natural disasters inside a dungeon before, but they soon realized these were indeed countless monsters rapidly closing in on them, yet only one single beast stepped out near the group. Could this lone creature have caused such a massive quake? Yun Sol agreed the tremor had been incredibly intense. Thank goodness they were not dealing with an entire pack. But then, the hunters spotted hundreds of glowing red eyes glaring at them from the dark trees surrounding them. Completely stunned, they wondered where they came from. Yun Sol did not comprehend how this trap had sprung so suddenly. Shin Hyan told Kim Keel to leave the rest of this to him and get the others out of here right now. Kim Keel realized his idol was about to unleash that massive ability. The deputy guild master ordered the hunters out right now. Yun Sol was terrified. What on earth was her brother doing? Did he really plan to fight alone? Absolutely insane. But she firmly refused to leave his side. Kim Keel yelled that they had to go. Meanwhile, Shin Hyan triggered a teleportation gate right in the center of the clearing. The hunter smiled. Finally, absolute peace. Kim Keel watched closely from the sidelines as massive blasts shook the area, completely stunned. It was unbelievable. The Tamra Guild stood completely frozen. Could Shin Hyan Really be human, even for an elite adventurer, this was way too much. Kim Kale realized Shin Hyan had summoned these beasts himself. He turned and looked at Yun Sol and realized, no matter how strong Shin Hyan was, he still had a family waiting, yet he was out there alone, fighting a literal army of monsters. Of course she was worried. The young hunter spoke up, saying he understood her anxiety, but Shin Hyan was an incredibly strong person, and there was really no reason to panic. Kim Keel added that Yun Sol knew her brother best of all, so she should trust his strength a bit more. Yun Sol realized her brother was currently raking in a massive amount of experience all by himself. Honestly, she wished she could be out there too, the girl said. She was fine. Her brother was the one person she never had to worry about. Meanwhile, Shin Hyan realized his new skill was proving to be incredibly effective. All he had to do was issue a single command, and it affected every beast in the dungeon. With his sovereignty skill and raw power, he could easily round up every single target. Shin Hyan grinned, knowing his dungeon sweeps were about to get way faster and more efficient. His sovereignty skill roared to life. Readying his weapon, he commanded all beasts to kneel before him. Meanwhile, an assistant asked Li Jai-hai if she was okay or felt uneasy here. The guild leader replied that everything was fine. She just thought she heard someone's creepy laughter. The assistant said he would go ahead and finish up his report then. He reminded her that Park Tahan was still completely off the grid, and his guild members had barely been active lately. Because of this, the Dawn Guild easily secured full ownership of the disputed dungeon. He added that, for the time being, they could completely ignore the Twilight Guild. Li Jai-hai felt something was off, even for Park Tahan. She never expected him to lay low after their last clash. She was deeply troubled by what the rival leader was secretly planning. The assistant placed some papers on the table, calling this their most urgent task. A highly dangerous dungeon had just been discovered in the Taebikan Mountains. It was a brutal desert biome, ranked at threat level 13. The recommended level was 60. Honestly, this was going to be a truly brutal dungeon. Under the blistering Taebikan sun, the scorching heat would exhaust hunters instantly, and shifting sands make movement almost impossible. The local monsters are massive, easily the size of a 10-story building. These giant insects hide deep underground. The assistant added that although their numbers are small, they are deadly enough to slaughter high-level adventurers. Chief Chung-ho Jian Yun Sol's investigation was thorough, making the details reliable. Meanwhile, Li Jai-hai stated that this simply was not enough. They would need to organize another dungeon raid to gather a clearer picture of the situation. She realized that during stressful moments like this, it would be wonderful if Shin Hyan were around. Her assistant asked if she was deeply distracted today, noting she seemed out of it. If Li Jai-hai felt unwell, she should rest, but she insisted she was fine, though Li Jai-hai accidentally bumped a teacup with her elbow. It slipped off the table, crashed down, and shattered into pieces. Her assistant quickly offered to clean it up, but Li Jai-hai felt like she was losing her mind. Seriously, when would Shin Hyan finally come back to her? A whole month had already passed since they began exploring the dungeons of Chyenju. Far away, Shin Hyan occasionally watched the hunters fight, a massive horse-like beast that used its massive hooves as lethal weapons. By fusing the unique sovereignty and spirit of his sword techniques, Shin Hyan managed to unlock the telepathic subjugation skill. Yun Sol and Kim Keel watched in awe as the monster was taken down in a single blow. Our hero can now summon monsters directly from the Chyenju dungeon. Annoyed, Yun Sol asked Kim Keel why he talked to her like she was a kid since she was older. Her sudden anger completely caught him off guard. Shin Hyan noticed his sister's irritation, knowing everything depended on the total damage dealt to the enemies. The system distributes experience points to every active attacker. Shin Hyan knew he could stay on the sidelines even when other hunters made critical mistakes, and in that instant he realized he had to step in. One hunter was desperately running away from a deadly monster hot on his heels, pure terror shining in his eyes. Shin Hyan leaped down, grabbed the panicked hunter, and hauled him up onto a safe tree branch. The rescued man thanked Shin Hyan, who simply told the guy to calm down and consider if upgrading his intelligence stat was possible. Meanwhile, Kim Keel couldn't help but marvel at how ridiculously strong Shin Hyan actually was. Yun Sol, however, remained highly annoyed that Kim Keel kept ignoring her. Throughout their training sessions, Shin Hyan completely mastered Kim Keel's teleportation Magic, in fact, Shin Hyan's sheer talent quickly surpassed the original caster, though. He still required a bit more time before he could perfect the skill entirely. He hadn't reached his ultimate goal yet. Later, Yun Sol happily told her brother. She finally tried the local specialty on Cheonju, delicious black pork and perch. The local restaurant was incredibly good, but she still needed to focus on leveling up. Eventually, Yun Sol successfully leveled up 3 times, reaching level 38 as a hunter. Kim Keel noted that Shin Hyan's level shot up dramatically after their recent dungeon raids. The others also managed to learn some valuable skills. Shin Hyan knew this entire journey was deeply family-related. He initially worried that Yun Sol might overwork herself, but the hard training actually helped her. Kim Keel then shared the schedule for their upcoming raids, mentioning a brand new request from the Samato Guild. Shin Hyan asked if this dungeon was infested with bats and where the location would be. Kim Keel confirmed the next target was a deep cave. The young man added that they could request reinforcements if needed. They are even offering to send one of their group leaders along, but is that really necessary? Judging by the rough terrain, the caves ahead would be dark and cramped. Teleportation and arrows, absolutely useless inside these tight spaces. Yun Sol frustratedly asked if that meant they were completely helpless out here. Shin Hyan stood firm. He was absolutely determined to win. But first, they needed rest. Shin Hyan told his sister not to worry. He promised to handle everything quickly, even as terrible memories began resurfacing. Suddenly, a man approached and greeted Shin Hyan, saying he was glad to see him. This was Lim Jong-wook, the commander who would be leading their dungeon raid. Representing the Samato Guild, he assumed Shin Hyan already knew the area well. Since he was familiar with it, they could immediately begin their operation. A massive portal appeared. The young man cursed under his breath. Shin Hyan suspected this dungeon was far more than a simple cave system. An intense feeling of dread washed over him. Maybe it was just his imagination. Either way, Shin Hyan decided they had to move fast and finish. They entered the cave. Immediately, a wave of hostile monsters attacked. Swarms of monsters appeared, but Shin Hyan effortlessly cut them down. He turned to the guild master to ask for their next objective. Things were moving much faster than scheduled as Shin Hyan completed his tasks. Lim Jong-wook was completely stunned by their incredible clearing speed. He noted they were nearing the edge of the unexplored zone. Shin Hyan urged them to hurry, but Lim Jong-wook suddenly paused. For some reason, the face of Shin Hyan had gone pale, but he claimed he was fine. In reality, those terrible memories from years ago still heavily haunted him. He suddenly froze in his tracks. Ahead lay pure, pitch-black darkness. Deep inside the cavern, the Samato Guild leader assumed Shin Hyan was exhausted. He suggested they take a break, but Shin Hyan bluntly refused. He was perfectly fine. He wanted them to drop the subject. Lim Jong-wook apologized, claiming he was just highly concerned for his guest. The leader offered a recovery potion, but Shin Hyan wanted to leave immediately. One wrong move, and his unstable power would destroy them all. Pulling out a map, the Samato Guild leader explained the road was confusing. They would have to work hard, but the scouting was almost done. He assured everyone there was no need to worry as they cleared ahead. Honestly, you can clearly tell these guild members are hiding something. Lim Jong-wook casually asked if Shin Hyan had ever visited Sakuram Grotto. He insisted it was far better than this depressing, gloomy cavern. Shin Hyan silently agreed, though his cold expression made the leader uneasy. Shin Hyan cut in. How much further did they have? The unease grew. It was completely suffocating now. Suddenly, glowing, mysterious symbols appeared on the ceiling directly above Shin Hyan. He instantly recognized the pattern as an active magic disorientation formation. While it caused no physical harm, it completely scrambled their senses. The spell forced anyone inside to walk in endless, frustrating circles. They would see the same paths repeating and begin doubting their direction. Shin Hyan tracked the flow of magical energy, realizing it led to a trap. Staring at the location, Shin Hyan is stunned. Why is this pattern here? Murim inside a normal dungeon. Could this actually be another pathway to that world? Or did this pattern exist here from the very start? Either way, it was definitely connected. It had to involve the Murim, but Shin Hyan wanted nothing to do with that world anymore. He forced himself to stay calm. Those dark days were buried in his past. He refused to get distracted now, deciding instead to accept the invitation. Shin Hyun is ready to face whoever is looking for him. Meanwhile, over at Tibecan, massive beasts erupt from the desert sands of the Tibecan dungeon, towering over the hunters. They were absolutely huge. The hunting party leader shouts that they need to get ready. Just hold the line a little longer. He quickly activates his Crusader skill. Divine Blessing triggers, defense instantly boosted. Things were getting way too intense, and his stamina was already running on empty. That's when a bizarre phenomenon suddenly lights up the sky above them. He tells everyone to keep their cool. This is his absolute strongest ability. Winning is their only option here. Without a victory, no one is leaving this place. Time to act, Lee Jai-hai strikes. She lunges at a massive beast with nothing but her twin daggers, completely fearless. After landing the blow, she complains about the heat. At least they finished it. The guild master smiles, praising his assistant and calling her a worthy deputy. Lee Jai-hai playfully shoots back that the guild master could easily do the same. Even though they only downed 3 targets, the squad is already completely exhausted. Grab some shade, Lee Jai-hai orders the hunters to rest for half an hour. The leader teases her, asking if she feels embarrassed raiding alongside him. She looks at him in surprise. He grins, asking if she and Shin Hyun are close. They seem so close it might as well be a date. She laughs, calling him hilarious. He is just happy he could bring a smile to his stressed assistant's face. But still, Lee Jai-hai quickly tells him to keep his mouth shut next time. She wonders aloud why the other guild leaders skipped out on this raid. Things would be simpler. The leader explains Quan Zhang and Yun Xiaomin had urgent business. Just outside the Tibecan dungeon, some hunters discuss their next moves. They need to prove themselves first. Only then will the leader accept them. One young hunter suggests it would be easier to train with the martial arts guild. Especially since Shin Hyun is a total beast. Suddenly, the assistant speaks up. She asks why these two showed up here. One hunter spots the chief secretary. He wonders if something is happening at the gate, offering a quick greeting. The secretary figures he might as well join them since he is free. But the assistant warns the hunters to never lower their guard out here. Twilight is quiet lately, but they are still a major threat. Suddenly, blinding orbs of light materialize in the sky and rain down fast. Many hunters are badly injured by the blasts. The bleeding chief secretary gasps in shock. It's the high-tier meteor shower skill. Only top leadership knew about this raid. A mysterious knight steps out from the forest. The secretary's eyes widen. It really is Twilight. Director Yun Xiaomin rushes over, asking if he's okay. The secretary asks what's happening. Yun Xiaomin confirms his worst fears. Yes, Twilight is behind this attack, and they are escalating their moves. Those guys are nothing but lawless scoundrels, the Secretary General growls. How did he even pull this off? The young man realized the chief and deputy still needed a few more hours to break through. He had to decide whether to stay put or call for backup. Meanwhile, the Secretary General asked how Director Yun Xiaomin had even found this place, since they were supposed to be kept in the dark. But Director Yun Xiaomin suddenly barks at his guest. He barks out that if they are only here to discuss business, it is already over. What does Secretary Dong Huano have to say to that? Right after, Yun Xiaomin makes a quick call to report. The cleanup is done and Quan Ojong should be arriving any minute. The head of the Twilight Guild confirms they are on the move too, glad that things are running smoothly. The guild leader rolls up to the scene, praising the squad. Commanders from the Dawn Guild for their solid work. He genuinely likes what he sees, and openly wishes them a quick climb up the career ladder. But Park Tahan scoffs. Lee Jai-hai is just too naive and soft-hearted. She is not. Once considered that traitors are hiding right under her nose. These men have actually been loyal to him since the Festival of the Sun. He remembers clearing this exact dungeon 7 years ago, back with Lee Jai-hai. It was right after his return from Murim, when he had first started out as a rookie hunter. A crowd of eager young people gathered round, staring at an untouched dungeon that no one had ever cleared. Park Tahan quietly asks Lee Jai-hai how much longer they have to carry these weaklings. Having them around ruins their training, and he has zero interest in babysitting. He presses her on why she even bothers. Has she completely forgotten about the brutal Murim? They need to grow stronger as fast as possible. He asks if she has thought over his proposal, urging her to look at the precious jade he received from the Heavenly Warrior. He promises that this artifact will multiply their combat power in no time. He insists they join the legendary Heavenly Warrior pledging their loyalty to gain real power, but Lee Jaihai cuts him off. She understands his constant anxiety, but they are not in the deadly Murim anymore. Their lives are safe here, so why chase endless power? Looking at the rookie hunters, she admits she genuinely enjoys guiding these kids. It is the perfect way to forget the horrors of Murim, if only briefly. The rookies call her over and she smilingly waves them on, but Park Tahan bitterly remembers, believing she was the only one who truly understood him. They shared the same trauma, after all, yet he soon fell far behind. Her blaming his slow progress on those weak, dragging hunters. The sheer frustration ate at him until he decided to carve a different path entirely. He had no business wasting time with weaklings. Fast forward and Lee Jaihai gasps in horror at her bloodied squad. Only Park Tahan stands completely untouched. She cannot comprehend how low-level monsters could cause this much damage. Park Tahan coldly suggests leaving them to die since they are useless. A bleeding hunter begs him to at least rescue Julian, but Tahan refuses flat out. They must leave now as beasts are still lurking close by. Still, the boy begs him once more for help, but time is running out. Suddenly, Park Tahan hears a voice. He kept claiming that everything was completely normal, always helping Lee Jaihai and following her. She turned him down out of weakness, having forgotten her past despair. The heavenly warrior declared that this useless trash had to be purged from their sight immediately. He had to destroy absolutely everything that made Lee Jaihai look weak. Nothing would be spared. Only then, the heavenly warrior muttered, would she understand. Meanwhile, Park Tahan ruthlessly wiped out every single hunter who entered the dungeon. He made a vow to strip away all the pathetic weakness cluttering Lee Jaihai's life. Turning his back, Park Tahan ignored the trembling squad leaders of Dawn. The traitorous commanders anxiously asked him what their next move should be. Park Tahan's assistant quickly stepped in, ordering them to secure the area and lock it down. Anyone trying to escape would be eliminated. The assistant then turned to him. What should they do with Shinhyan? The Twilight leader simply smiled in confidence. Everything in Janju was going smoothly, so there was no reason to worry. Galen had already initiated his complex operation, and absolutely no one could escape his trap. They were moving faster than expected, yet everything went according to plan. Park Tahan cut him off, calmly stating that he completely trusted his judgment. The Twilight leader ordered the two hunters to accompany him into the dark dungeon. His loyal assistant promised to handle Lee Jaihai on his own, just as he had sworn. Park Tahan shrugged, giving him complete freedom to do whatever he pleased. The leader of the Twilight Guild grinned, declaring it was time to get down to business. True hunters hunt their prey, and today their target was the Dawn Guild. But get this, Shinhyan was completely clueless as to why nothing had happened yet. He voiced his growing doubts directly to the master of Samato. Something felt incredibly off, but Lim Jongwook tried to assure him that everything was fine. Still, an eerie feeling told Shinhyan that a trap definitely awaited them. Could it be that these clueless people had absolutely no idea who was supposed to be here? Confronting the master of the Samato Guild, our hero demanded the truth. What were they actually scheming? Shinhyan grabbed the commander directly by the collar. He warned that while he had tolerated their shady games, his patience was completely gone. He was done staying quiet if the foolish leader of Samato wanted to survive. And leave this place alive, he had to tell them absolutely everything. The assistant trembled in fear, on the absolute verge of revealing the whole truth. Galen chuckled, noting that Shinhyan was surprisingly quick to catch on to the scheme. That actually worked out better, with the operator reporting the target's arrival. Shinhyan spotted strange, flickering lights deep inside the cave and realized they had shown themselves. Our hero never expected to find such a welcome gift waiting for him here. A hidden spy device had been installed right there to watch and eavesdrop on them. Shinhyan simply muttered that they were complete madmen. Suddenly, Lee Jaihai felt a strange, deeply unpleasant sensation washing over her. Brushing it off as overheating, the girl decided she just needed a moment to relax. With only 2 monsters remaining to her east, they could finish this today. Suddenly, a massive, deafening explosion echoed from just beyond the mountain ridge. Anxiety gripped her, knowing they had set up their camp in that exact direction. What was happening? The unsuspecting hunters had been caught in a brutal ambush. It was completely unexpected, catching the entire group entirely off guard. The Twilight Guild was right in the middle of this, the Dawn Guild leader. Already badly hurt, the chief knew fighting even just one of them would be tough. let alone dealing with Ryu Xiang and Cho Jaihong, the battered Dawn leader. Stared up at Park Ti-hun. Honestly, the man was on a whole different level. His raw power was terrifying. Ti-hun clapped, mocking his opponent as a true hunter worthy of leading the Dawn Guild. Then, with a smirk, he apologized for holding back. He had seriously underestimated the veteran warrior. Chun-ho, honestly, Chun-ho never expected to run into the legendary monster himself. The Dawn leader spat out a question. How did Ti-hun even get in here? And what happened to the guards at the dungeon gates? Ti-hun just smiled, asking back what Chun-ho thought the answer was. The Bleeding Guild leader demanded to know how Ti-hun found them. This raid was supposed to be completely secret. Talk about a nightmare scenario. A rat had sold them out from the inside. Chun-ho gripped his blade, swearing to slaughter every single traitor working for Twilight. Watching him, Ryu Xiang noted that the old man had actually grown stronger, which was a nice surprise, but they had no time to waste. Nearby, Dawn hunters fell one by one, bleeding out under the brutal assault. Cho Jaihong told the leader to just end their pain. Ti-hun shook his head, too sad. An incredibly tragic scene. He could barely watch without crying. Well, not really. It just proved that weaklings are nothing but dead weight in a fight. Suddenly, Lee Jaihai stepped out. Ti-hun smirked, mocking her arrival, but she just smiled back, saying she was thrilled to finally corner this arrogant punk after searching so long. Ti-hun pouted, asking if she was going to ignore her old friend. The Twilight leader claimed he truly missed her. Jaihai spat back, telling Ti-hun to cut the garbage. They had been trying to kill each other for years. Ti-hun waved a hand, ordering Jang Hyuk to eliminate her. Instantly, the clash erupted. Jaihai lunged forward, striking first. Closing the gap, she taunted him, noting that Jang Hyuk had grown slightly stronger since becoming Ti-hun's loyal little dog. After all, there was a time he could barely hold a simple weapon. Angered, Jang Hyuk lashed out with his dagger, but Jaihai slipped past the strike effortlessly, telling him he was being far too impatient. Jang Hyuk quickly realized this duel would be much harder than he expected. Jaihai knew she could take him down, but her mind was already racing about what came next. She glanced sideways, spotting the captured Dawn hunters being held at sword point by the enemy. Their bleeding leader was desperately shielding a dying ally with his own body. Raising his sword, he roared that he would never let these bastards touch them. Jaihai figured the stubborn old man could survive a bit longer like that. But the real threat, that was still Park Ti-hun. She knew that lunatic was just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ti-hun watched her closely, noting that Jaihai had also gotten impressively strong. Their raid on Chaihu Island was likely wrapped up by now anyway. If plans went smoothly, Shin Hyan was probably already a dead man. But then boom, a massive explosion ripped through the air as Shin Hyan laughed, mocking their pathetic attempts. Did they seriously want to die that badly? Lim Jongwook panicked, completely losing his mind over what just happened. The leader of Sam Dato stared. With his target's back turned, Shin Hyan realizes his own rush forced his enemies to make their move way too early. Apparently, they wanted to wipe him out with explosives. Lim Jongwook frantically asks if Shin Hyan is hurt. The leader is stunned. Who would think to rig a place like this with bombs? Suddenly, Lim Jongwook throws his head back and screams. Foam bubbles up at the edge of his lips. The mighty head of the Samato Guild collapses straight to his knees. Panicked hunters demand to know what's happening as Shin Hyan orders the leader to confess. What is the real play here? Lim Jongwook gasps out that he knows absolutely nothing. Shin Hyan is not buying it. He calmly points out that only the owners have total control over a dungeon entrance, and this place belongs to the Samato Guild. Setting up explosives down here would have taken days. How could they sneak bombs so deep inside? Can the leader really keep playing dumb? Coldly, Shin Hyan declares that he is not going to ever believe a single word. Everything coming out of his mouth is a flat-out lie. Lim Jongwook still desperately pleads ignorance. If not for Shin Hyan, the blast would have shredded everyone. He claims that Shin Hyan's sudden arrival is what nearly got them killed. Shin Hyan notes the leader kept silent despite having plenty of time to speak up. Now the young man warns him this will be his first time testing this skill on a human. The terrifying absolute submission skill activates instantly. Shin Hyan warns that if the leader's mind completely shatters, it is his own fault. Under the crushing pressure, Lim Jongwook confesses that the Samato Guild was built backed by the Twilight Organization. Their primary directive was to secure Twilight's iron grip on Jeju Island, but everything changed when a man named Galen appeared. Galen had smirked, mocking their dusty, run-down headquarters as rather cozy. He wondered if this joke of an office truly belonged to the elite Samato Guild. Galen introduced himself as Park Tahan. Lim Jong-wook admits he had no clue what kind of pull this mysterious guest had within the higher ranks. But he could feel an immense, terrifying aura radiating from Galen. The visitor demanded the full backing of the Samato Guild. Soon after, the higher-ups ordered them to obey Galen's commands without a single question. Their target was Shin Hyun. They had to lure him here by the deadline. The guild was expected to handle the entire dirty execution completely by themselves. Hearing this, Shin Hyun realizes that no signals can penetrate this deep dungeon. This means the masterminds are lurking close by to set off the charges. Closing his eyes, our hero focuses entirely, narrowing down his senses. They cannot have slipped away. Suddenly, Shin Hyun channels his massive energy. Just then, a loyal hunter named Vicky steps up, vowing to protect his leader with his life. Vicky physically blocks the path, shielding Lim Jong-wook. An intense energy beam cuts through the air, violently slamming the far wall. Dust clears to reveal a massive breach. Did Shin Hyun just blast a tunnel? Shin Hyun advances through the opening, leaving the stunned hunters completely baffled. Could that be raw magic? Vicky sighs in relief. They might actually survive this. They can finally go home, but Shin Hyun coldly declares that this guild stays right here. Sins demand payment, and there is absolutely zero forgiveness today. The hunters tremble with fear. What is Shin Hyun about to do? Suddenly, another loud crash echoes as the exit gets completely blocked. Vicky screams at the leader to get a grip right now because they could all die. The terrified hunters don't want to stay here, begging for their lives since they did nothing wrong. Shin Hyun coldly replies that he survived in a cave for 10 whole years. Now they can try it too. They will love their new home. He mocks them, saying thanks for giving him the perfect excuse to crush them, but first he needs to greet a guy named Galen. Meanwhile, Lee Jae-hai admits she never expected this from Sang Hyuk. Suddenly his deadly clone technique activates. His intense training has clearly paid off, making him incredibly sharp. Sang Hyuk notices that Lee Jae-hai is still looking down on him. She calmly declares it is time to activate her shadow play. Lee Jae-hai is shocked. Why use such a valuable ability now? It is too precious to waste on some lackey. She snaps that even without it, Sang Hyuk stands absolutely no chance against her. He is simply too green and slow. She warns Sang Hyuk to watch and learn how true assassin gets things done. Instantly, her poisonous kiss skill activates. Lee Jae-hai promises to show him the cold moonlight of a crimson path. Lee Jae-hai moves like a ghost. Sang Hyuk cannot even touch her. During their clash, she realizes her opponent is truly a fanatic of Park Tae-hoon. Sang Hyuk is proving to be just as stubborn as his master. Lee Jae-hai slashes her daggers rapidly, giving Sang Hyuk no room to breathe. He is forced to stay on the defensive to avoid falling into her deadly trap. In a flash, Sang Hyuk slips right behind Lee Jae-hai. His origin skill triggers instantly as Sang Hyuk unleashes a devastating strike. Lee Jae-hai barely manages to deflect the blow, but then his poison spear activates, forcing her to retreat. Wait, look at her face. That is pure terror. Sang Hyuk's venom is actively melting her dagger. Lee Jae-hai realizes that one tiny mistake means death, yet she smiles. This is getting fun. His combat style has changed completely. Lee Jae-hai announces that she will have to switch gears. Sang Hyuk reminds her that she once taught him how to grow stronger, but Lee Jae-hai retorts that she has no memory of that. She must tread carefully. This poison leaves absolutely no room to hesitate. As she searches for his real body amid the clones, Sang Hyuk warns that if she cannot remember, he will gladly beat the memory back into her. This is her final warning to activate her shadow play. Lee Jae-hai asks if he is tired of begging. She insists she has absolutely no intention of using it. On Sang Hyuk, she must keep her ultimate trump card hidden for now. She needs to save her energy to fight Park Tae-hoon. Sang Hyuk snaps that in that case she is finished, launching a brutal strike right at her back. Lee Jae-hai screams in agony as crimson blood starts to spill. Yet she suddenly laughs, mockingly telling Sang Hyuk to look at her. Is he actually trying to mimic her dual dagger style? Is this really the puppet Park Tae-hoon chose to replace her? She asks if their master is nearby. She sneers that even though Sang Hyuk is utterly pathetic, his very presence is a massive eyesore. Everything about him completely disgusts her, the young. A terrified man begs Jae-hee to stay back while she presses a dagger against his skin. She whispers that to grow stronger, an assassin must truly harbor the desire to destroy. If Seong-hyuk wants real power, he needs to let absolute hatred consume his soul. He must crave their total ruin, burning with the very same malice she feels. Suddenly, hunters ambush them from behind, shouting that they have finally spotted Jae-hee. She instantly realizes that Park Tae-hun found her, but she remains entirely unbothered. She knows Seong-hyuk understands her goal, to completely erase the newcomer from existence. Because of this, she decides to put off her vengeance against Seong-hyuk for another day. Jae-hee delivers a crushing final blow, telling Seong-hyuk that he has absolutely zero talent. He should walk away from this life and start fresh with a clean slate. Maybe he could become a simple craftsman because he just is not cut out for combat. Seong-hyuk recalls how those cold words utterly trampled his pride and denied his very existence. Furious and humiliated, he built himself back up from absolute scratch after that insult. He completely changed his entire fighting style just to settle the score. Even though Jae-hee belonged to a rival guild, he had always deeply respected her. He asks if she can even comprehend the pain of being crushed by your idol. That burning obsession to destroy her was the only thing that made him strong. Jae-hee smiles, remembering his desperate struggle to surpass her and acknowledging his growth. But she coldly points out that Seong-hyuk still managed to overlook one crucial detail. She warned him to quit this path, and in this pitch-black darkness, that warning rings true. Seong-hyuk panics as strange figures manifest. Could these actually be shadow clones? Why would she summon them now? Jae-hee offers him one final piece of advice. A true killer only reveals their real face when delivering the ultimate finishing blow. In an instant, Seong-hyuk is completely defeated, leaving Jae-hee to address the lurking enemy. He thought he had won, but it was nothing more than a cheap illusion. Park Tae-hun steps forward, admitting that Seong-hyuk had actually put up a decent fight. Jae-hee glares at Tae-hun, calling him the exact monster she has been dying to slaughter. Tae-hun smugly asks if she enjoyed the little show he prepared for her. Jae-hee responds with absolute disgust, though she admits her feelings are a bit mixed. Either way, Tae-hun will not get a quick death. She plans to torture him slowly. Tae-hun laughs. That is exactly what he wanted. With their weapons drawn, Tae-hun and Jae-hee brace themselves for a brutal clash. Jae-hee braces herself, knowing she must utilize her game of shadow skill. As the duel begins, Shin Hye-in desperately tries calling Jae-hee, but his call goes straight to voicemail. He figures she might be occupied, but he needs to warn her immediately. He has crucial info about the Samato Guild. Suddenly, Jalen interrupts his thoughts. He mockingly notes that she is highly unlikely to answer. Her dungeon is currently under heavy siege, and cell signals do not reach deep underground. Jalen smiles, knowing Shin Hye-in is desperately wondering how he obtained this secret information. But for people originating from the Muram realm, this is just another day at work. He hopes that this brief explanation has fully satisfied his opponent's curiosity. Shin Hye-in retorts that Jalen does not look or act like an elite expert. He still has questions, starting with whether his foe is truly from Muram. But a far more pressing issue remains. How did he learn about the dungeon raid? Jalen smirks, claiming he has the answer, but doubts Shin Hye-in is ready for it. Galen was being pretty rude. Shin Hye-in realized the man had no interest in talking. But that did not matter. He was ready to force the truth out. Galen simply grinned, claiming he had known how this would play out all along. Shin Hye-in was genuinely impressive. It turned out the wild rumors were actually true. He could wield high-tier magic with ease, probably blending it seamlessly with martial arts. But suddenly, Shin Hye-in realized he had been lured into a deadly gravity trap. To make matters worse, enemies surrounded him on all sides while Galen laughed. He warned that this gravity trap was unlike anything Shin Hye-in had faced before. This was his ultimate masterpiece, a perfect fusion of spatial magic and his own power. With a cold sneer, Galen clenched his fist to trigger the legendary golden seal. The massive trap snapped shut, pinning Shin Hye-in down under a mountain of pressure. He struggled with everything he had, trying to push past the crushing weight. Shin Hye-in muttered that these were just cheap tricks, but his limbs grew heavier. Their weapons clashed in an instant, steel screaming as heavy sparks flew everywhere. In the heat of the collision, Shin Hye-in realized his internal energy was fading. He simply could not draw upon his strength anymore. This was bad. Looking at the warriors rushing him, a sudden wave of shock hit him. Were they actually from Murim? Right now, they looked almost entirely unstoppable. Galen smirked, absolutely loving the sheer desperation written all over his face. He mockingly asked how it felt to be stripped of all his power. Villain explained that the golden seal was actively draining Shin Hyan's energy. Every bit of that stolen strength was being channeled directly into his subordinates. That meant no matter how powerful Shin Hyan was, victory was completely impossible. Galen added that the harder Shin Hyan fought, the stronger his enemies grew. There was absolutely no way out of this vicious loop. He was finished. His own stolen power would destroy him, but wait, his comeback is legendary. This guy seriously talks way too much. He was already sick of it. The young man noted he was not called the Invincible Sword Emperor for nothing. Now he would show everyone just how pathetic Galen looked before true strength. True arrays are formed by arranging natural items in a precise, secret order. They essentially warp reality to create an entirely new, isolated pocket space. Even the legendary Grandmaster, Zhuang, used these formations to call down devastating lightning. His ancient octagonal methods could easily wipe out entire armies in seconds. He was a godlike figure, standing far above any mortal cultivator of old. Even after returning from Murim, he had kept perfecting this legendary art. Honestly, if truth be told, he could be compared to a god himself. Right then, Shin Hyan finally understood the secret behind Galen's grand trap. The golden seal was just a cheap wordplay to hide the true array. The attackers lunged from behind, aiming to deal a single, fatal blow. But the young master casually told them to hold on a second. The hunters froze in shock. What was happening to their physical bodies? Why were they completely numb? Shin Hyan declared he was almost ready. They would just have to wait there helplessly. Galen panicked in disbelief. Had this monster actually created a brand new space law on the fly? He had never seen such a feat. How did Shin Hyan spot the secret weakness in his ultimate formation? This was absolutely impossible. Did his opponent really just shift the formation? The adjustments were almost invisible. Shin Hyan admits Galen is doing pretty well, but it is time for some answers. He asks his opponent straight out if he is somehow affiliated with the demonic cult. Shin Hyan admits he doesn't know much about them, but this dark energy feels similar. It carries the exact signature of that cult. Plus, despite having martial skills, they are definitely not seasoned warriors who returned from the dangerous land of Murim. Their moves are way too sloppy and unrefined for any true Murim master. More importantly, the pure harmony of true martial arts is completely missing from them. That was the dead giveaway. Galen is forced to admit Shin Hyan is incredibly sharp. Galen points directly toward his assistants, explaining that unlike his own living body, these creations are entirely artificial. Shin Hyan can hardly believe his own ears. He understands transferring energy by piercing flesh, but at his level, it is reckless. Shin Hyan realizes his opponent must have done something far more sinister here. There is no other way. He notes that if they were normal human hunters, he would not have sensed such a massive anomaly in their internal energy. This is either the dark sorcery of the demonic cult or weird earthly magic. Galen laughs and admits that Shin Hyan has completely figured out his secret. He proudly confesses to transforming worthless street thugs into useful, deadly weapons. The lives of those useless trash were a small price for his research. Through thousands of brutal human experiments, he created a private army of elites. These puppets are comparable to top adventurers. Shin Hyan narrows his eyes in disgust. Using thousands of innocent people as mere fodder, he has officially heard enough. Watch this. Galen suddenly clutches his chest as a terrifying resonance begins. He has no idea what is happening back in his Murim days. Slaughtering demonic cultists never made Shin Hyan feel even a single ounce of pity. If anything, it excited him. Now, he calmly declares the hunt has officially begun. Galen is absolutely furious. How dare this brat look down on him like this? Suddenly, the paralyzed hunters feel their bodies surge with wild, overwhelming power again. Too late, they are already caught in his inescapable trap. Two massive, opposing energies collide in midair. Shin Hyan does not even flinch. Outnumbered, yes, but he remains absolutely unshaken as the battle rages. His enemies suddenly feel as if they are burning alive. They scream in absolute agony, begging Galen to save them right now. What was the point of all this? Shin Hyan simply smiles. This is fiery gold. Fire melts metal. the five elements rule supreme. He instantly strips away their energy, replacing it with refined gold. Galen is completely baffled. How can a mere human do this? Shin Hyan tells him he mastered formations back in Muram. Your current skill level is absolutely laughable to me. Plus, this was actually pretty fun. Galen can only stare in disbelief. He spent his entire life researching this, only to get completely crushed. His pride is shattered. How did this kid reach such a godlike level? Don't get too upset. You never stood a chance anyway. No point in worrying over a level you can never hope to reach. Talent is everything. Without it, you are absolute trash. You cannot achieve much no matter how hard you try, Shin Hyan warned, ready to strike. His formation would absorb all energy, since Galen had stolen so much himself. He had no right to complain when the exact same thing was done to him. Shin Hyan activated his absolute command skill immediately. He ordered Galen to reveal what was happening to Li Jihai right now. Galen muttered that Li Jihai was already dead, having lived a completely isolated life. She was lonely in her old world and in Muram until she finally met him. He did not know that other returnees existed, introducing himself with a warm smile. He was happy to meet her, and during their raids, Park Ti-hun protected her. He kept her safe from every danger, and even now, this cave brings back those memories. The cave echoed with her past pleas, begging him never to abandon her. It was difficult for Ti-hun to rely on her, yet he felt deeply grateful. For the first time, someone actually needed her, but now she regrets their entire bond. Park Ti-hun cold-heartedly told Li Jihai that it was time to stand back up. He taunted her, asking if she was truly satisfied with such a pathetic defeat. Dragging her broken body, the wounded girl lunged forward to strike him down. Ti-hun instantly triggered his defensive barriers and reflecting shield. Her desperate strike completely missed, but she quickly leaped high into the air. She prepared to clash again, while Ti-hun stared back with utter indifference. He told her she was clearly exhausted, and she could barely keep her eyes open. The Twilight Guild leader pointed out that her ultimate shadow play was already spent. Surrender was her only option, leaving her wondering how he had grown so incredibly strong. But she had not spent her own precious time slacking off either. Li Jihai demanded one final answer before the end, and Ti-hun shrugged. He asked what she wanted to hear, and she demanded to know why their comrades died. Ti-hun scoffed, saying he was sick of that question and wanted something more exciting. She stared in disbelief, wondering how he could complain about being sick of it. Those were her words to say, and she accused him of constantly dodging the truth. He always ran from the truth, but she needed to hear it today. She demanded her answer, and Ti-hun coldly replied that they died because they were weak. He asked if it was not natural to crush the weak, making her regret asking. She realized she was foolish to expect a real human answer from a monster like him. Utterly exhausted, she declared that it was finally time to finish their tragic battle. Li Jihai charged forward one last time, determined to take his life or die trying. Ti-hun calmly thrust his blade forward to meet her final desperate assault. Their weapons collided with a deafening screech, while back elsewhere, Shin Hyan checked a phone. He stared at the screen of the defeated enemy, recalling Galen's final words. Their guild served the heavenly warrior, proving this world was crawling with absolute trash. They were just like Ti-hun, but he could not interrogate a dead man for details. He died too quickly, but Shin Hyan tracked a location 450 kilometers away. Remembering Kim Kyeol's unique teleportation ability, he quickly formulated a brand new plan. This left him with only one viable method to cover that massive distance. At his current level, he could make it there in just 20 minutes anyway. He reminded himself that Li Jihai was nothing more than a temporary business partner. Even if she was in mortal danger, he had absolutely no obligation to rescue her. In this world, everything eventually crumbles and dies. Did he really have any reason to save her? No, Shin Hyan could not find a single logical reason. Yet he still remembered the moment the girl had asked him out on a date. In their chat about that silver board game at the tea shop she visited so often. She had been so indignant back then, demanding to know why he couldn't tell the truth. How Li Jihai had reached out her hand, thanking him formally as Dawn's deputy leader. Replaying these memories made him grab his head, honestly believing he was going mad. Until now, Shin Hyan believed only two people mattered in his life, himself and his sister. But somehow, without him even realizing it, another name had slipped onto that list. With his mind made up, he accelerated, launching himself in her direction. Just hang on, he silently warned Li Jihai, you had better wait for me. Outside the dungeon gates, the traders rested and enjoyed their easy lives. Not a chance, there was absolutely nothing to regret about switching sides. Leaving Dawn and selling out to the Twilight Guild was the smartest move ever. The pay was 3 times higher, and the work was barely even a challenge. They even got full dental benefits. Still, one trader couldn't help but wonder. What could that crazy bastard be thinking? His colleague looked over. Are you talking about Shin Hyan? Honestly, it was a miracle their boss knew. But that monster is probably already dead anyway, the traitor scoffed. True, the other agreed, but even if he lived, how could he escape? He would never make it back from Cheonju Island. Suddenly, a rustle shook the trees. Birds scattered in terror. The young hunters froze, a sudden dread creeping in. A bone-chilling aura filled the clearing, and then Shin Hyan walked right up. Total panic, the traders gasped in pure terror. He was the single most terrifying monster they could have faced. Deep inside the dungeon, Park Ti-hoon mocked Li Jihai, demanding she show her true form. He wanted to see her actual strength, where had all her fire gone. Li Jihai struck back with every ounce of her power, but it did nothing. Every single strike was effortlessly neutralized. Her desperate assault was failing. Then crack, her weapon shattered into useless pieces from the sheer strain. Park Ti-hoon grabbed her by the hair, sneering at her to focus on the fight. Down she went. He tossed her aside like trash onto the hard floor. Utterly boring, he sighed, asking if she honestly expected to defeat him. To the powerful leader of the Twilight Guild, this was clearly her absolute limit. Park Ti-hoon looked down, asking if she finally understood who was truly in the right. Aligning with the Heavenly Warrior was the only path to real survival. He extended a cold invitation, telling her to join his side instead. Together, they would rise so high that no one would ever dare challenge them. Li Jihai spat back. She would gladly choose death over serving a coward like him. Mocking him, she said he was acting like a pathetic, delusional child. Rambling endlessly about his precious Heavenly Warrior and his outdated laws of the jungle. She warned him that his blind, foolish loyalty would only lead to his own grave. Because Shin Hyan was already hunting for the Heavenly Warrior with a vengeance. A man entirely consumed by rage, determined to destroy the ones who ruined his life. Park Ti-hoon threw his head back and laughed. Did she really think he cared? Does Park Ta-hun really think the Heavenly Warrior's servant gets to live? Ta-hun claimed that according to his reports, Shin Hyan was already finished. The Twilight leader added that he handed the execution over to others. He trusted the powerful Tenjo Guild to handle Shin Hyan for good. They served the Heavenly Warrior, led by a fearsome survivor of Muram. This squad set off for Cheonju Island, each member stronger than elite adventurers. No matter his training in Muram, Shin Hyan stood absolutely no chance. But suddenly, Shin Hyan appears right in front of a shocked Park Ta-hun. He mockingly tells him to keep going with his little fairy tale. How on earth did this guy survive and track them down here? Shin Hyan calmly answers that he is back to return some lost property. Specifically, he brought back the traders who served the Twilight Guild. He recognized these two from the Dawn Guild at the previous festival. Since they dared to get in his way, they had to go. He points out that Li Jai is still breathing, leaving her utterly speechless. Park Ta-hun realizes that Galen must have been utterly crushed by this monster. How did this guy even leave Cheonju Island to get here so fast? Shin Hyan merely notes that a lot has changed since they last met. Instantly, the Twilight leader braces himself and activates his heavy reflecting shield. Shin Hyan strikes without hesitation, forcing him to fight back right now. The blow is blocked, but Shin Hyan asks if he believes in God. If not, he highly suggests finding one quickly so he can start praying. He needs to beg for mercy, though Shin Hyan doubts it will help. Furious, Park Ta-hun swings his blade and lunges forward, sparking a brutal clash. Their colliding energies instantly erupt into a massive, earth-shaking shockwave. Shin Hyan mentions that his early days in Muram almost killed him. So out of pure respect, he will unleash actual martial arts now. He summons his deadly 100 descending dragon skill, forming a glowing sphere. Park Ta-hun panics, but Shin Hyan already hurls the deadly projectile forward. He calls out his devastating technique, the soaring dragons of the sky. Ta-hun is stunned by this rare martial art that manipulates pure physical energy. He cannot comprehend where this bastard learned such a legendary technique. Still, he braces himself, believing there is no way it will land. A deafening blast tears through the area, leaving a blinding flash behind. As the thick smoke settles, a coughing Li Jai slowly wakes up. She scans the ruined battlefield, unable to see either of the fighters. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, asking if she is doing all right. She spins around to find her guild master, leaning heavily on his sword. Chunho-jang gasps that he is relieved to see her alive and well. She rushes over, demanding to know how he survived and where the others are. Chunho-jang grimly explains that the rest of their squad is gone. He is the sole survivor of that absolutely brutal and chaotic slaughter. Bleeding heavily, he admits he only barely managed to escape with his life. Meanwhile, Park Tahan's men scramble to their leader, checking if he is okay. Their commander, Ryuong, demands to know what caused such an insane blast. A vast stretch of land lay completely destroyed. Jiang wondered if Jai Hyun was responsible. Ryu Xiang muttered that the situation looked far worse than he had ever anticipated. He heard a familiar voice. Those two annoying henchmen had actually shown up here too. Naturally shocked, Ryu Xiang demanded to know how Shin Hyan had managed to get here. He wondered why the guy did not even seem tired. Shin Hyan merely looked around. Sizing up his many opponents, he knew his body was still far from fully recovered. He needed more time. Park Tahan screamed for his men to kill him immediately. They had to eliminate Shin Hyan at all costs. The Twilight leader realized that. His opponent was likely weakened by that skill, making this the perfect opportunity. Shin Hyan smirked, noting that he now had two more fresh bodies to use. Park Tahan repeated that if Ryu Xiang and Jai Hyun wanted to survive, they had to attack. The loyal aides readied themselves, swearing they would carry out orders. They swore to obey and avenge the humiliation Shin Hyan caused during the Sun Festival. Ryu Xiang told Shin Hyan to prepare for battle as the fire dragon was activated. Exhaling deeply, Park Tahan realized he still had a little bit of time left. He had to heal fast. Meanwhile, Chunho-jang gasped, shocked to see Shin Hyan. Why was he here instead of Jeju Island? Jai Hyun muttered they would discuss it later. A sudden explosion roared nearby, bringing a faint sense of relief to Shin Hyan. He had been trapped in a cave before desperately teleporting over vast seas and mountains. Shin Hyan smirked, pointing out that he knew Park Tahan wanted to rest and recover. Chunho-jang and Li Jai watched in absolute awe, wondering how Shin Hyan had defeated two enemies so fast. Shin Hyan casually joked that the light appetizer was not bad at all. He stepped toward Park Tahan, saying it was time for dessert. Park Tahan remained baffled, wondering why his healing was failing. Honestly, we are all asking the same thing. Can anyone actually stop this monster? A mysterious voice suddenly whispered inside Park Tahan's mind, telling him not to worry. It was time to wake up. He had suffered enough, leaving Park Tahan wondering if he could truly gain greater power, as the entity confirmed that was possible. Only this presence could grant him strength, but Park Tahan had to fight for survival. Gasping, the Twilight leader felt a dark, incredible energy begin to flood his entire body. Surprised by this surge, Shin Hyan wondered if his opponent still had hidden tricks. Was Park Tahan seriously planning to desperately cling to life, even at this point? There was no doubt he would die today, but the voice called him a loyal tool. The entity whispered they were almost there, while Shin Hyan admitted this was interesting. He questioned why Park Tahan had hidden this, suddenly spotting a strange, glowing necklace. Seeing the artifact around his rival's neck, Shin Hyan admitted he was actually getting excited. If this power belonged to someone else, he had to seize this golden opportunity. Shin Hyan raised his gleaming blade, telling Park Tahan that this would be an honor. Withdrawing his sword from its sheath, Park Tahan prepared to fight back. He activated his ultimate origin skill. Shin Hyan smirked, liking the weight of his blade. His foe had better be ready. With those cold words, Shin Hyan closed the distance. He lunged forward, noting how poorly his opponent treated that legendary sword. Shin Hyan warned him that losing a weapon on the battlefield meant certain death. He glanced at the glowing necklace, noting that the mysterious trinket was losing power. It was clearly running out of energy. He challenged Park Tahan to show him more. With a clash, Shin Hyan strikes again. Fresh blood flows. Red drops spill from Park Tahan as Shin Hyan demands answers to his burning questions. He violently grabs Park Tahan's throat. Who is it? Who hides behind the heavenly warrior's mask? Speak. This unresolved question is the sole reason Park Tahan is still breathing. He would have died long ago, specifically when he first touched Yun's soul. Unleashing his absolute control skill, Shin Hyung orders his captive to speak. Park Tahan must tell him everything about the heavenly warrior he serves. Under pressure, Park Tahan confesses that a powerful entity sent them to Murim. He reveals someone else lives inside his body. Later, Shin Hyung wakes up. Wait, what just happened? Waking up in heavy chains, he struggles to understand. Looking around in horror, he realizes he is back in a Murim cave. This is a lie, Shin Hyung screams in total denial. He refuses to believe it. Park Tahan quietly watches him. He explains that this illusion is a world created by the Soul Sword. Unbound and free, Park Tahan sits quietly across from his chained captive. Perched on a large boulder, the Twilight leader asks if memories are flooding back. Are those old memories rushing back? Park Tahan notes that Shin Hyung is the first guest to enter this space, welcoming him warmly to their meeting. He declares this is their first true meeting, sparking instant rage in Shin Hyung. Is he seriously trapping him here? Park Tahan responds. Since this entire space is forged from a soul sword, breaking free is impossible. He advises the young warrior to stop struggling and just calm down. Shin Hyung spits back his anger. This is not Park Tahan. That majestic swordsmanship proves he is facing the legendary heavenly warrior. The entity admits this is a rare meeting, offering to answer any question. He promises complete honesty. Grimly, Shin Hyung looks up and asks his question. Did he truly enjoy watching him suffer alone in that horrific, endless world? A hell where death waited at every corner and isolation slowly ate him alive. He survived like that for 140 years, never knowing his family's fate. The heavenly warrior watched those 140 years of torture like a game. He is a monster, a complete scoundrel playing with life. Park Tahan merely sighs, claiming he grew incredibly bored and tired over time. He has been waiting patiently just to watch Shin Hyung grow stronger. He wonders how Shin Hyung still kept his humanity through such horrific suffering. Despite enduring endless hardships, the boy never lost his core human self. Shin Hyung scoffingly laughs, completely uninterested in his twisted philosophical musings. He once wanted answers from him, but now he refuses to listen. None of those excuses matter anymore, regardless of how bored the entity was. Shin Hyung has only one final regret left, and it demands absolute blood revenge. He roars that he will personally tear down this wretched, life-ruining monster. Summoning his hidden reserves, Shin Hyung shatters the binding chains in one go. He lunges forward, driving his blade straight through the villain's chest. Park Tahan gasps, his body slowly sinking as dark blood pools around him. Shin Hyung glares down, knowing this monster must now yield and open the exit. To ascend, breaking past every human limit, otherwise he would lose. Everything, Park Tahan's bloody body lay motionless on the ground. Lee Jae-hai and Chun Ho-jian appeared behind our hero. Shin Hyun noticed he was no longer inside that cave. Lee Jae-hai immediately asked about Park Tahan's fate. The next morning, everything changed. When dawn announced Park Tahan's death, the Twilight Guild declared an absolute surrender, disbanding entirely. Suka Kyoho stood utterly alone in the empty guild headquarters. Most of Twilight's elite hunters, including Park Tahan himself, were dead. The survivors simply tucked their tails and ran. This quickly forced the collapse of Twilight. Into dawn, meanwhile, Chief Secretary Dong Wano refused to resign. He knew the guild could not survive without his help, so he faked his death during the raid. After that, the massive guild merger went quite smoothly. Soon, an assistant yelled that the press conference started in 10 minutes. And they had to rush. The leader of the Dawn Guild was scheduled to speak inside the executive office. Shin Hyun and Lee Jae-hai sat drinking tea. Quiet comfort. To Shin Hyun, this whole scene felt like major déjà vu. Sipping the exact same tea, Lee Jae-hai noted how smoothly things were moving forward. Thanks to the peace treaty, Twilight was officially merging with Dawn, but some stubborn factions were still refusing to play along. Shin Hyun shrugged. The entire world already knew about their corruption, leaving them absolutely nowhere left to hide. Lee Jae-hai readily agreed with him. Still, she admitted she felt a bit disappointed by how things ended. Park Tahan lived a brutal life, and she never expected him to die like this. Hearing her, Shin Hyun quietly recalled the warning from the heavenly warrior. He was currently hovering right on the edge of true ascension. If he did not abandon his human heart, he would lose everything. Rage boiled inside him. That coward hid in the shadows yet dared to threaten. Shin Hyan silently swore to crush him next time. Lee Jai-hai asked if something was wrong. Apologizing, Shin Hyan admitted he was just lost in thought. She had noticed a chilling aura rolling off him. Then she placed a heavy, locked safe from the Twilight Leader's office right onto the table. It refused to open or break, sealed tight with some powerful magic. Now you know he cannot resist a good mystery. Shin Hyan found it quite fascinating. He joked that he usually avoids touching other people's property, but this was a special case. There could be some priceless guild treasures inside. With a simple wave of his hand, the safe snapped open. Lee Jai-hai gasped. In utter shock, asking how he did that, Shin Hyan shrugged, saying it was actually quite simple. He pulled a thick document from the safe and began reading. The paper was incredibly well preserved, and Lee Jai-hai immediately recognized the document from somewhere. Shin Hyan demanded to know why she snatched the papers straight out of his hands before he could finish. She quickly explained it was a hidden treaty between the Chanjo Guild and Park Tahan. It promised to hand over control of all their dungeons if they backed Twilight. Suddenly his phone rang. It was a call from Kim Keel. The deputy leader urgently reported on their current situation. Outside the dungeon entrance, a massive roundup was underway. The Samato Guild members who targeted Shin Hyan were finally captured and faced arrest. Chaos reigned inside the dungeon, where explosives actually used. Shin Hyan asked if they had seen the damage. Kim Keel replied that it was impossible to miss, but something far beyond their wild imagination was unfolding right before their eyes. Kim Keel really hoped Shin Hyan would get back soon, otherwise Yun Sol would blow her top. His sister was just too annoying. Lee Jie handed over a stack of documents, pointing out some critical files about the Tenjo Guild. It turned out 4 other survivors had returned from Murim. Aside from Jalen, Shin Hyan realized he now held their entire profiles. These people were absolute masters who had already reached the 50th level. Now it made perfect sense why they chose the name Tenjo. He could tell these guys were absolute fanatics. Lee Jihai completely agreed with him. Hearing that, our hero declared that he had his next clear target. He needed to hunt down every single member of the Heavenly Warrior Guild and turn poison against them. In the brutal world of Murim, it was a basic law to be devoured by the strong. Our hero knew that he would be the one left standing. An assistant approached his boss with critical updates. The boss noted that the merger of Twilight and Dawn was already in motion, and it was actually Twilight swallowing Dawn up. The assistant confirmed it. The boss then asked if they had managed to reach Jalen. The assistant replied that 36 hours had passed since his last contact. The young man realized that they had failed. Park Tahan was always far too confident. It was shocking that Jalen had lost. Even their 10 elite enforcers, who targeted the cultivation masters, had completely gone silent. It seemed Park Tahan was absolutely right. This target was not to be taken lightly. As for Shin Hyan's actual martial arts level, he must have trained for at least 75 years. That made him stronger than someone at the 68th level. The boss ordered his assistant to dig deeper into Shin Hyan's background. They had to avoid direct contact, operate entirely in the shadows, and take their time. His external and internal stats did not matter. After all, victory could always be won through methods far beyond brute strength. Over on Jeju Island, at the headquarters of the Tamra Guild, Yun Sol warned her brother that if he ever ran away again, she would make him pay. A sweating Shin Hyan quickly apologized and said he was sorry. Kim Keel stepped in to try and calm her down, but she just demanded to know where he went. Meanwhile, Chun Ho-jan, the rival guild leader, was constantly on TV. The news about the Twilight takeover was trending everywhere. Lee Jihai decided to start gathering every piece of intel she could find on the Chungho Guild. Since there was a major risk they would cover up their tracks, she chose to handle this investigation herself. Lee Jihai wondered if digging around would even help, but Shin Hyan replied that a direct cover-up actually made things easier. After all, he still had to exact his absolute revenge no matter what. The chief of the Tamra Guild confessed he was solely to blame for this entire mess. He never expected traitors within the Jeju Guilds. The leader offered his deepest apologies and asked how he could possibly ever make amends. Shin Hyan coldly replied that he still harbored massive doubts about the Jeju Alliance. There could easily be more rats hiding among them. He added that he really wanted to believe them, but now his trust was completely shattered. All of this was because of what went down. Shin Hyan added that as long as the Tamra Guild does not oppose him, they are not his enemies. He looked at his allies to see their reactions, suggesting they finally move past this. The leader replied that they never abandoned him, justice had won. Then Shin Hyan asked the Tamra leader if they intended to join the Dawn Guild. The Cheju Guild could join them too, but Tamra promised to stay neutral because of their own internal conflicts. Their battle was over. The young warrior once again suggested that they unite with the Dawn Guild. Cheju's forces alone would not be strong enough to defend these local dungeons. The leader, Kim Hajian, replied that this was a choice for the whole alliance. He could not make that call on his own right now. Honestly, though, it would be their absolute best path forward. Kim Hajian bowed deeply to show his gratitude. Shin Hyan pointed out that trust comes easy when you are all in the same boat. He realized that if he expanded his control over this island, tracking down those shadowy traders from Cheonjo would be a breeze. Shin Hyan then asked Kim Keel if those secret underground paths they discussed were still intact. Kim Keel nodded. Only one remained near Mount Hallison. Shin Hyan declared that they would move there immediately. They had to move fast. When the squad gathered, he noticed they only had high physical classes, tanks, warriors, and priests, a pretty strange lineup. Shin Hyan wondered why they left out mages and archers. Was it just because of the tight cave terrain? Kim Keel explained that he and Yun Saw would stay behind. Kim Hajian added that in this particular dungeon, long-range vision attacks are totally useless. He explained that the Hallison dungeon is easily one of Cheju's worst zones. It gets incredibly dangerous due to the thick mist covering the entire place. Honestly, imagine walking through a place where you cannot even see your companions. But the real threat lies in the mist monsters. Their physical bodies blend completely into the haze, making ordinary physical strikes pretty much useless. Real damage only ever comes from massive area of effect spells or holy magic. These thick fog beasts possess insane physical strength, striking without warning like professional killers. Shin Hyan nodded, understanding the setup. He just needed to strike them down with raw skill. He told them to stop explaining and prepare for a fight. He would step things up. The guide looked pretty disappointed since he wanted to explain more, but Kim Hajian laughed, saying this was just Shin Hyan's charm. He stared into the dark entrance, feeling a strange sense of familiarity. A gentle breeze blew, but the thick mist blocked all vision. Kim Hajian smiled, glad he had run into Shin Hyan so quickly. He warned that they absolutely must stick closely together first, taking even a single step away could get them permanently lost. The leader gestured and ordered his team to light up. He noted it was much safer to advance with a steady light source. Shin Hyan asked Kim Hajian if there was any truly safe spot near the entry. The leader replied that no beasts had ever ambushed them right at the gateway before. Suddenly, Shin Hyan felt a heavy wave of dark energy nearby, catching him completely off guard. He looked around and realized there was nobody nearby. Where had everyone gone? Shin Hyan told them to quit joking around like that since he couldn't see a single thing. The thick fog completely blinded him, but monsters never wait, they strike without warning. Ambushing them was easy, preparing for it was impossible. Only Shin Hyan reacted. He was the only one who spotted the beast and immediately charged straight at it. The other hunters spun around, staring blankly into the empty fog as a strange rumble echoed. Shin Hyan explained that these beasts only materialize right when they launch an attack. It was highly unusual, but this time the fog monsters were waiting right at the entrance. The squad leader barked out orders, telling everyone to form up and stay highly alert. Shin Hyan focused his senses, trying to pinpoint the monster's new location. He called out to the hunters, asking if everyone was still doing all right. Shin Hyan quickly scanned the entire area, using his search magic. No more enemies were showing up, meaning they could finally catch their breath. Kim Hagan stood there in sheer disbelief at how quickly those fog beasts had been wiped out. Shin Hyan warned them that one of the creatures might have slipped away. He could still sense its residual energy and offered to track it down if they needed his help. Shin Hyan quietly planned his next move, making sure to thoroughly analyze the battlefield first. Kim Hagan realized his squad never would have survived such a brutal opening onslaught alone. Shin Hyan walked up to the guild leader, suggesting they take a quick walk to talk. He asked if there had ever been attacks right at the dungeon entrance before. The answer was a flat no. This was completely unprecedented. Kim Hagan added that it had been a very long time since they cleared this place. Because the monsters had multiplied unchecked, they had pushed all the way to the entrance. Shin Hyun decided he would investigate this strange behavior as they cleared the dungeon. The female hunter asked if he was all right after leading the vanguard for 3 hours. She wondered if his stamina was limitless. Shin Hyun just smiled and asked a question. He asked if the monster levels or attack frequency had changed since the last run. The female hunter confirmed that things were indeed different this time around. These beasts were noticeably larger compared to any of their previous raids. Kim Hagun guessed the size difference might be linked to the head count, but it was too early to tell. Shin Hyun suddenly stopped and announced that he had just scanned the entire surrounding area. Something highly suspicious was waiting about 4 kilometers ahead, and trust me, it was massive. The guild leader gasped, shocked that his detection range could possibly stretch that far. Shin Hyun calmly noted they would find out soon enough once they reached the spot. Danger is par for the course inside a dungeon, so a sudden spike in risk is expected. An hour later, the mist grew incredibly thick, raising everyone's anxiety levels. Kim Hagun muttered that the blinding fog looked more like a solid white wall. Shin Hyun sensed something intriguing hidden within that dense white barrier. He pointed straight ahead and asked Kim Hagun to hurl his dagger into the mist. Energy was surging right there, so he told him to aim for it. The chief locked onto the target and flung his blade directly into the white abyss. His weapon sunk deep into thick flesh, echoing with a sickening wet thud. Shin Hyun grinned, praising Kim Hagun for landing a perfect bullseye right off the bat. Get ready, he warned, something absolutely massive is coming. An enraged giant emerged from the mist, its glowing eyes burning like wild flames. The beast lunged at the young hunter, but he raised his shield at the absolute last second. Stunned, he asked why the creature was targeting him, specifically out of everyone there. Suddenly, Kim Hagun leaped into the fray, striking the monster with a devastating, fatal blow. Kim Hagun quickly reassured the shaken young hunter that size simply did not matter here. He emphasized that their real strength lay in coordination, demanding they work as a team. Working together, he promised, they could handle anything. Shin Hyun watched them closely. Observing their structured formation, Shin Hyun thought the leader was doing a decent job. No need to interfere, they had the situation entirely under control. Slipping away, he decided to wander off while keeping an eye out for larger prey. Finding another big one would mark his second major hunt, counting that beast in Pushan. He quietly wondered if a massive boss would spawn from some nearby dimensional gate. Ambushed from behind, yet he never lost his cool. Spinning around, he flattened the monster with a sharp, heavy fist straight to its nose. He calculated that this dungeon shouldn't contain more than 2 distinct monster species. If Lee Jae-hai ever caught wind of this anomaly, she would absolutely lose her mind. Turning around, he spotted a strange anomaly that looked like a gate, yet felt entirely different. It resembled a holographic status window, but it was completely intangible to his touch. With nothing solid to touch, any actual physical interaction was completely impossible. The screen flickered with data, describing it as an unknown anomaly penetrating material reality. Just then, Kim Hagun quietly approached from behind. Surprised to find Shin Hyun wandering alone, the guild leader called out to him. Shin Hyun pointedly asked if he could see the glowing crack hovering right there. Kim Hagun saw absolutely nothing, asking if the young man was feeling okay. Shin Hyun realized he alone possessed this vision. Was this the Heavenly Warriors doing again? Meanwhile, deep inside the Dawn Guild headquarters, the deputy head worked late into the night. A knock suddenly rattled her door, prompting her to snap at them to stay out. Despite the warning, the door swung wide open to reveal her persistent assistant, Dong-won. Lee Jae-hai snapped that he must be deaf, since she specifically ordered him not to enter. Dong-won calmly replied that he heard her, but these urgent documents couldn't wait. He knew she wanted these files more than anyone else. She sighed at his boldness. This guy was incredibly cheeky. Lee Jae-hai grumbled that she hated to admit it, but he irritated her. Lately, every single time Dong-won walked into her office, her blood pressure spiked. Dong-won smirked, suggesting it was probably because his visits always meant more work. With the clock past midnight, he revealed this report was about a fresh crime scene. A standard exploration of a newly emerged dungeon had just resulted in severe casualties. They deployed a balanced team of mid-level hunters. Yet every single one of them was wiped out before even activating their skills. Dong-won concluded that this disaster would require the Deputy Guild Master's personal attention. This newly discovered dungeon zone was turning out to be completely unfathomable. Meanwhile, Shin Hyan had finally completed his long contract obligations. Finally free, the young hunter and his sister prepared to leave Jeju Island. While boarding, his sister asked why he was staring so intensely at that crystal. She wondered if it was the mysterious skill stone he harvested from the dungeon. Shin Hyan nodded, explaining it dropped from a massive mist monster they defeated. It was his hard-earned reward. Hearing this, Yun Sol recalled his previous gifts. If they sell this loot from the Tamer Guild, they will make over 1 billion coins. Finally, some decent food. Suddenly, Yun Sol turns to her brother. She asks him, what does he think of that massive monster? Shin Hyan points out a similar situation happened back in the Pushan dungeon. Giant beasts have already spawned twice. Is the world actually ending? But Shin Hyan knows the real issue is not the massive beasts. It is that dimensional crack. He remembers asking other hunters about it. He wonders if they are completely blind, since nobody else can detect it. Not even their sensory skills could pick it up. He is truly alone. The other hunters had no idea what he was talking about back then. Guildmaster Kim Hagun figured it was just Shin Hyan having insane perception. Still, the young warrior cannot make heads or tails of it. Could this be tied to the heavenly warrior? Yun Sol breaks his focus. She asks if he is actually dating the deputy head of the guild. Shin Hyan quickly denies it, demanding to know who spread such a rumor. She giggles and says everyone is talking. If not, they should start dating. In her eyes, it is high time he found himself a proper girlfriend. She is talented, beautiful. Lee Jae-hai would make the perfect sister-in-law. Shin Hyan sighs, insisting he has never looked at her that way before. His sister teasingly tells him to start thinking. He tells her to drive. Meanwhile, Lee Jae-hai slowly opens her eyes as a familiar voice greets her. She sees a well-mannered young man quietly sipping his warm tea before her. Shin Hyan notes she woke up just in time before he had to reheat it. Surprised, Lee Jae-hai asks him exactly when he managed to slip inside. He casually tells her he has been sitting here for an hour already. She scolds him for sneaking in like a thief without warning her first. Sighing, Lee Jae-hai admits she has been completely exhausted these past few days. Those pesky mid-level Twilight hunters are giving her a massive headache. On top of that, she's trying to spy on the rival Chianzhou Guild. Nothing has turned up yet, but their Chinese informant should report back soon. Suddenly, Shin Hyan reaches out and grabs her gently by her waist. Lee Jae-hai gasps in absolute surprise, their eyes locking together in an instant. A sudden blush creeps onto their cheeks. Look at them, it is finally happening. He lets go of her, admitting something feels off about her sudden fatigue. A highly trained warrior like her would never get exhausted from simple office work. She changes the subject, asking if he has heard of the unfathomable dungeon. Once its difficulty rating stabilized, she stopped using that dramatic name. Shin Hyan notices her hand, demanding to know where she got that wound. She quickly hides her hand behind her back, muttering about a new dungeon. It spawned in Chuncheon. The difficulty there is completely unmeasurable. She entered alone. This nasty cut was her only reward. She even unleashed her powerful shadow play, but only managed to kill one beast. She has never faced a place this incredibly strong in her entire life. To make matters worse, giant monsters are starting to spawn all over again. Dungeon rules are shifting fast, and Shin Hyan wants answers immediately. He needed to report something to Jae-hai, but he had to postpone the details for later. Shin Hyan asked her where this place was because he wanted to see this mysterious Chunhan dungeon with his own eyes, he silently thought. That first came the fog and now a volcano. Boiling heat and a terrible stench filled the air. Using his energy perception, the young man sensed there was something hiding deep. Within the core, just then, a massive fire monster emerged from the flames. Letting out a deafening roar, Shin Hyan immediately noticed that this giant beast had come out to greet him, saving him the tedious trouble of searching. Was this the very monster that left those deep burns on Jae-hai? Shin Hyan mockingly apologized for disturbing the beast while it enjoyed its hot bath. But the monster was completely at fault. It dared to look down on him, which was incredibly annoying. Shin Hyan admitted he could feel some seriously intense magma. Realizing Ryuong's own flames did not even compare, he knew that this fiery monster would be a highly troublesome opponent for ordinary hunters. To fight here, melee combatants would not even be able to approach because Of the heat and range strikes would completely fail, its solid build made it an impossible challenge for anyone else. Even so, our brave hero prepared for a fierce confrontation, noting that the most dangerous threat was the monsters. Unreal regenerative power. Already, 5 whole minutes had quietly slipped by. He slashed, struck, froze, and tore at the beast, yet nothing worked. This was highly frustrating. How did Jai ever manage to destroy one? Shin Hyung suspected that the giant's molten body was hiding something vital inside. He channeled a massive burst of energy straight into the molten magma center. After doing so, Shin Hyung finally spotted the core. He had to exert some effort to shatter it completely. Immediately, he pulled up his status window to check the details. His level had reached 56. Straight away, he called Jai. Meanwhile, an unknown figure watched him silently. Jai asked if he was safe. And out of the dungeon, Shin Hyung quickly replied that everything was perfectly fine and he actually had fun. He then asked to borrow this place for a bit, having a brilliant plan. Suddenly, a suspicious man watched from behind a tree. Jai agreed, understanding his intentions completely. The loyal girl promised to do whatever Shin Hyung directed. Moments later, Yun Sol questioned her brother about his next move. Shin Hyung instructed Yun Sol to smash the fiery target in front of her. Annoyed, Yun Sol snapped, demanding to know why he dragged her here to fight these lava monsters in this suffocating heat. Shin Hyung calmly urged his sister to relax and just shatter it, reminding her that he would never hurt her. She knew him best. Yun Sol retorted that she still deserved to know the full plan first. Shin Hyung simply urged Yun Sol to take it down with a single shot. The girl took aim with her bow, promising to do as he asked. Her arrow flew and struck perfectly, unleashing a massive explosion. Yun Sol eagerly asked her brother if that was sufficient. Thanks to that single hit, the girl instantly leveled up 5 whole times. Absolutely phenomenal, Yun Sol proudly boasted to her brother that she reached level 43. Shin Hyung chuckled, noting that it was way more than expected. Now, their real leveling spree could officially begin. Working seamlessly as a powerful team, Shin Hyung stepped forward and extracted. She smashed the cores. Over and over they fought, successfully defeating all 13 lava monsters. In the end, she checked her status. Absolute shock. Was she really awake? Her level had actually reached 50. Thanking her brother, she realized she was now a high-level hunter. She could finally afford a raise and buy her own apartment. In fact, she happily declared she would stay by his side forever. He smiled at her antics, gently reminding her that he was already her brother. She cheered anyway, shouting that he was the best brother ever. Shin Hyun chuckled, telling her to stop making a public scene. He realized she was idolizing him now, and honestly, he loved it. With her new elite rank, she would earn a legendary top-tier salary. Then she got worried. Had he lost valuable experience points while carrying her? He did all the hard work, after all, leaving her deeply concerned. Shin Hyun assured her everything was perfect. He had a blast. In fact, he leveled up too, reaching 60, a massive jump. To celebrate her achievement, he handed her a glowing cube as a special gift. She stared in complete awe, asking what this incredible item could possibly be. It was an incredibly rare skill stone he had retrieved from Jeju Island recently. She gasped. This stone could buy a luxury capital mansion. Why on earth had he not sold it for an absolute fortune? Shin Hyun told her to stop complaining and focus on keeping her training hard. She absolutely needed the power to defend her prestigious new high-level hunter title. Suddenly, he excused himself, and Yun Sol immediately asked where he was going. He smirked, calmly replying that a pesky little rat nearby needed to be caught. Hidden nearby, a nervous spy was frantically looking around to find Shin Hyun. The area was cleared. Did he really defeat every single monster alone? Could his power truly be that monstrous? And honestly, they had every reason to be absolutely terrified. Shin Hyun was right behind him, greeting him with a chilling smile. The spy bolted in absolute terror, but Shin Hyun only grinned calmly. With insane speed, he caught the runner, grabbing him by the chest. The spy gasped. His heavenly harmony of pure art was completely suppressed. Shin Hyun recognized the Muram style, even if it was sloppy. He demanded to know who taught him, but the spy stayed silent. Shin Hyun warned the rat to speak now or face catastrophic pain. He had been watching this pathetic stalker since the very first day. It was clear the stalker would keep following them like a shadow. It was easy to sense him. Did he come here prepared to die? because entering this territory meant there was absolutely no going back now. Tightening his grip, Shin Hyan ordered him to confess everything. Later, after hearing the confession, Lee Jai-hai looked deeply troubled. This whole situation was far more dangerous than they initially believed. Safe zones were actively collapsing, and massive monster variants were now appearing. Only Shin Hyan could see the cracks, but reaching them was impossible. Worse still, the Twilight Guild was starting to make their move. Dungeon anomalies? No, something far worse is definitely coming. But Yun Sol reassures the deputy guildmaster not to worry about this terrifying place. They will clear this dungeon, prompting Lee Jai-hai to thank her for the hard work. Shin Hyan decides to leave the Misty Dungeon under the Tamra Guild's direct supervision. He promises to report any updates immediately, noting how everything is happening at once. This wave of simultaneous events is a clear sign that the old order is collapsing. With China taking the opposing side, absolutely no one knows what dangers lie ahead. Look here, this is why he leveled her up. He needed to raise her level, deciding that Yun Sol's intense training must continue. She needs to overcome any danger on her own, especially with what comes next. Yun Sol must be able to defend herself against those who will hunt them down. Wait, what? Lee Jai-hai is utterly shocked by those words. Did something happen recently? The young man reveals he was being followed inside the dungeon. Just as he suspected, the spy turned out to be from their own group. The guy lacked highly valuable info, but they still squeezed some out. They extracted info about Zhao Fang, a member of the China Guild's dark team. Now we see Zhao Fang checking his phone, wondering why Liu is not calling. No answer. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattles his front door. A voice from the other side politely asks to be let in, claiming it is room service. The annoying knocking continues, repeating the exact same room service request over and over. Zhao Fang curses and tells them to go away. He has no idea. The door flies open with a violent crash, kicked in from the outside by a stranger. The man says room service requires entry. Zhao Fang leaps up, grabbing a sharp knife. Who is tired of living? Right then, a young man calmly steps inside. He asks why Zhao Fang is swearing and getting so worked up. It is Shin Hyan. He apologizes for breaking the door, asking if this is really the target. Pure shock, Shin Hyan is standing right in front of him. He demands to know how he got in, but Shin Hyan casually shrugs it off. He just walked through the door and asks if the boss is out for a walk. Zhao Fang calls that a good idea while quickly pressing his phone's emergency button. Drawing his sword, Zhao Fang warns that the intruder will deeply regret this visit. There is no escape. Shin Hyan simply glances back toward the hallway. A hostile backup squad has already arrived in instant response to the distress call. Shin Hyan eyes the group, wondering if these are actually magic-trained martial artists. Why are there so many of them gathered here in one tight space? Suddenly, Shin Hyan strikes, unleashing an absolute barrage of rapid blows on Zhao Fang. I can't see, Zhao Fang screams in panic under the blinding onslaught. Shin Hyan openly admits he is far too lazy to interrogate all these people. But if they truly studied martial arts, they should see his status window. Shin Hyan adds that lately, he has only used his hunter skills. He was getting a bit rusty, so loosening up his body is highly necessary. The young man cracks his knuckles, clearly signaling that a major battle is coming. Shin Hyan tells the thugs to open their eyes wide and look for it. Their eyes will meet his status window, revealing the brutal experience of the end times. He was about to manually set the sun on these foolish attackers. The thugs closest to Shin Hyan are the first to drop, scattering in all directions. Shin Hyan calmly asks the remaining thugs if they saw that. Since they completely missed it, he promises to show them again as the brutal clash continues. Casualties rise. Shin Hyan asks if they see his status. He is talking about his status window, which he knows entirely by heart. After checking his screen every single day, Shin Hyan is finally warmed up and ready to hunt. He asks for their boss, Wei Hai, the leader of the third-place team. That very boss steps out into the empty hallway, scanning the area. It is completely and utterly deserted, leaving Wei Hai wondering why nobody is standing guard here. Not a single sound. What on earth is happening in this place?